Hello, and welcome back to the spookiest season of the year, ARKTOBER, here at the ARK of E, the Dark of E. My name is Noah.
Yes, and my name is Gavin, and we both traveled across oceans of time to be here. But one thing that has not changed, as in many ARKTOBERs in the past, is that we find ourselves again faced with an unspeakable evil that we must figure out some way to vanish it to the abyss from which it came.
You're starting to sound a lot like Van Helsing. Is that what we're doing here?
Yes, Dracula. He is real, I assure you. I don't really have like a good Christopher Plummer like Dracula 2000.
I was going to say, is that what you're doing? Dracula 2000,
I was
the
trying
classic,
to.
the most famous of all vampire movies. Hello, everyone.
I mean, yeah, Jerry Butler, come on. Johnny Lee Miller.
Classic Jerry Butler. Okay.
Yes. That was Jerry Butler before he was Jerry Butler. No one knew who he was.
It's that time of the year. I know we spent months saying October 2021, baby. That's where it's all going to happen. And in classic ARK of E fashion, it's we got like a week and a half left of spooky season. And this is the first time you're hearing from us. So apologies on that front. We'll go ahead and explain a bit. I had a wedding to attend. First part of October. And so I was a little delayed getting into the spooky season. We also, of course, teased a big all Blanchard review of the now number one movie at the box office. Yeah, definitely the domestic box office.
$50 million.
Halloween Kills, the latest and probably the most often talked about franchise. Pretty much, I mean, we pretty much built an entire network around discussing that movie.
Right.
And that franchise in particular. So, but that was also further delayed because Mr. Matthew J. Blanchard, the younger of the two brothers Blanchard,
yes,
just had a new Blanchard of his own.
The first Blanchard great-grandchild.
The first Blanchard of the in the ARK of E era. The first staff member to
the
have
first Blanchard of the 21st century. Am I right?
That might be possible.
Yeah, I
think so. Has any other Blanchards had babies recently?
I mean, our clan, no.
Okay, we're getting sidetracked.
We are.
But yeah, we want to send
some time off.
A big welcome to little Miss Rowan Jemison.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Right.
Rowan J. Blanchard has a fantastic ring to it.
Roman J. Blanchard Israel. Or Esquire, sorry. Roman J. Israel Esquire, Roman J. Blanchard. Yeah. Yeah,
Rowan.
The J's there. Rowan, yeah.
Yes.
It's real close.
But yeah, we look forward to meeting her in person.
We do. She's technically our cousin once removed.
That is true. But needless to say, Matt is quite busy at the moment. She was just born, less than a week ago?
The 17th.
17th.
Indeed.
And we are recording this on the 20th. And it's going to turn into the 21st before we're done.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And I don't think we're dropping this until the 23rd.
Because 23rd of April.
Of April.
Just one. What is it? No. It's April 23rd or is it the 24th?
You know
No, it's the 21st. The 21st of April. 11:55. I rewatched The Fog. The Good Fog.
I'm sure you did.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We'll get into some rewatches. And, I don't know. You'll see by the episode title, though. We're just going to, we're just getting back in the swing of things.
Yeah.
It's been a bit since we recorded.
Right.
It's been a bit since we've done October sort of things. We had a poll out to our listeners, which thank you to everybody who took part in that. And, instead of narrowing down and doing a straight up 2x2 for this month, we decided to give you more like a 4x4. I guess that's what it would be. I don't know if we're going to talk about all 8 of the movies that were in contention, but we'll talk about those. Talk about what we've been watching for our horror rewatches, and I'm sure I'm going to have to sneak in a couple things in there. And that's part of why I'm not haven't been able to fully get into the spooky spirit is because there's been so many other things coming out this month, non-horror related, to distract me on top of all of the day-to-day life stuff that keeps me from being able to, like, I think I'm a few days behind because we try and do one a day. That's usually what we challenge ourselves to do. And I think I'm at least 2 or 3 behind, even though I've basically been playing catch-up this whole time.
Right.
We'll get into it. Anyways, I don't know if I finished my point, but we will have the Halloween Kills review.
Yes.
Whether it's all Blanchard or not, by the end of the month. So you have plenty of time to watch it. Of course, it's available on Peacock, and it's in a theater near you. We'll get into our theatrical experience on that episode. We'll save all of our thoughts. But I think we had some differing opinions. I will tease that. So look forward to a very lively discussion about a lot of deaths.
Right.
Do you get it? Lively discussion.
No, I mean, okay. Yeah, you kind of already kind of like colored it in a way that makes me the bad guy. So it's all good.
I mean, I think anybody who's listened to any of our previous coverage could have guessed. Gavin loved it.
Whoa. I didn't love it. Okay, 7.7 or what was I? 7 or 8? What did I say?
You told me an 8.5.
Yeah, that's not loving it. That's like it's good. It's great. It's not loving it. 9 is.
It's great.
It's great.
I didn't love it, but it's great.
I have problems with it. I mean, you know.
I have lots of problems with it.
Yeah.
So we'll get into
it. One glaring one is just the ridiculousness of.
Let's save it.
Yeah, I've only talked to like 3 people about it, and I guess I have to check myself because I don't want. I'm going to talk to friends about it this weekend, so that'll be another review, and I just don't want to rehash things on one that I go into my friends with you guys. So that's why I was hoping we would have talked about it before, so I can maybe like step back and get people's opinions. But if my first real discussion about it's going to be with like other groups of friends, the All Blanchard review may be some rehashing of stuff. I'm just throwing that out there.
So you want to talk about it right now?
No, just my one big glaring issue.
Okay, tease it, I guess.
Okay.
Sure.
I just don't understand. Maybe it's supposed to speak to some sort of like innate animal mob thing. But like everybody in that bar watched the news report. We didn't get to see it because the screen faded, but they definitely showed 2 different fucking mugshots. 2 different people who were not accounted for. And then all of a sudden it's, oh no, it's him. It's him at the hospital. It's him. That's my only problem. That's my only big glaring thing of like, are you kidding me right now?
That's your only problem.
No. Like,
that movie.
That's my only problem. I have other issues, but I don't have a problem. Listen, I try to be clear.
Do you want to fucking get... Yeah, I try to be clear in the way that I speak.
Yes.
Do you want to have a conversation about semantics right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll get into all of that and more. Like I said, hopefully it is an all Blanchard review. If we are unable to do that, maybe we'll have an interesting 3-man pod and we'll just get Patrick in. But I think the easiest way to do that is going to be Zoom. So you don't have to come down here for that because I don't know how we would both get on Zoom mic'd up on the same top or on separate tops in the same room. Like, I don't know about the feedback and all of that shit. We'll figure it out.
Right.
One way or another, though, if we can't do it with those gentlemen, then you're coming back down here and we'll just have it out.
Right. That works.
But we will have that discussion up.
When are we going to have that discussion up, Noel? When's it going to be?
Mark my words. October 31st.
Okay. So now just one more workshop question. One more shop question.
Yes.
Did you already watch the director's cuts of these 2 that you wanted me to watch to do our like legit 2-by? Because this back and forth poll thing was like my brainchild. But you said you wanted to do Midsommar.
I have not watched either.
Okay.
Yet. So I don't know. You may be getting a late 2x2. Maybe this is the 2x2. Maybe we call,
This is the 4x4 if you want to get technical, but yeah.
Yeah, sure.
We'll
see. We'll play by ear. I only, tease that and set it for like, I don't know, 2 months in advance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't watched either. I did, dude.
And these Blu-rays don't have
I'm currently working 2 jobs. I also had to put the finishing touches on an album, plug, which comes out on the 29th. available everywhere. It's called Thalassogen. We'll talk about that more when it comes out. You look so perplexed.
It's like, I thought, is that like theology and then like a lozenger? Is it like religious music to, really
A
soothe your...
Thalassogen is it's an astronomy term for any like basically material or element that helps to build a planetary ocean. So it's about like space and ocean. You'll get it when you listen to it.
So it's about the old ones, the cosmic gods, the ones that existed before man?
Yes, it's all based on H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay, fuck yeah.
I actually do have some Lovecraft, like one song on there that is directly inspired by The Lighthouse, which is basically an H.P. Lovecraft story.
Okay.
Did you watch The Lighthouse?
With
Pattinson
Batman and Green
with
Goblin? Yes.
Batman and Green Goblin?
Yes,
Yeah.
no, I watched it like 3 times.
Okay.
Fucking great.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it was putting the finishing touches on an album. Fucking James Bond had to go and end the franchise for right now. So I had to go
Spoilers,
catch
dude.
that. And
Spoilers.
in that it's his last movie.
Okay.
Like whatever the franchise is gonna be, we don't know yet. They gotta find a new one.
We gotta make our
We
picks.
don't know what's going. Yeah, we could do that as an episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, we both saw No Time to Die. But that's how dedicated we are to ARKTOBER right now. We're not even going to tell you how we felt about it.
Right.
Even though I will tell you I thought it was fucking great. And I highly recommend it. And I'm probably going to go 2 or 3 more times before it's out of theaters.
I
What
loved
an
it.
experience.
I loved it.
I loved every
okay?
second of it.
Just, that's just the distinction.
Yes.
I loved No Time to Die. Halloween Kills was great, but I loved No Time to Die.
Okay.
Does that make, are we clear?
We're definitely on the... I mean, we're on the same page on the
Okay.
No Time to Die front, for sure.
Well, I guess since like Midsommar and Dr. Sleep, I don't know if you want to classify them as like straight up horror. I would classify Midsommar that, no problem.
Where do you hold back on that with Dr. Sleep?
It's just more like a not science fiction, but it's just like it's a weird, like it's not, I don't know. I don't get Shining.
It's supernatural horror.
It's supernatural, but it's not like, I
The
don't know.
Shining is as well.
Right, but like The Shining is scary. Like
Yeah.
it's deeply scary.
Agreed. It's my favorite horror movie of all time.
Right.
Probably like my 5th or 6th favorite movie of all time.
Right, and like Doctor Sleep hits that note, but it's just not. I don't look at it, and when I see that, I don't immediately think great horror movie. It's like a supernatural, maybe like a thriller, maybe like a. Again, I do put like Stephen King things in their own stratosphere,
Right.
if that makes sense. Whereas like Midsommar, there's tons of Wicker Man vibes. There's tons of, I'll give you Midnight Mass vibes in terms of like the whole you're isolated, you're here with this group thing.
You do realize the director of Dr. Sleep directed Midnight Mass.
Really?
That's a Flanagan joint. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Did you really watch Dr. Sleep?
Yes.
Watch it.
Twice.
Okay.
From start to finish one time. And then I caught it halfway
We talked
through.
about it at the time, but you know me. Like I just said, The Shining is one of my favorite movies, period. It is my favorite horror movie. And I like Mike Flanagan prior to it, but I had my guard up, dude. I didn't go see it in the theater. It bombed. Mm-hmm. And I checked it out at home begrudgingly because I had heard like, hey, it's not too bad. That was the consensus I had heard. And I watched it and thought it was a borderline fucking masterpiece. I don't put it in the same, like, stratosphere, as you would say,
Right.
of the original in any way, shape, or form. But for what it was, because that is a fusion of how do I reconcile the book that a lot of people have a huge attachment to, including Stephen King himself, with the visual iconography and the film. Mm-hmm. How do I reconcile the two? And every single decision to me that he made in terms of negotiating that was fucking brilliant. Mm-hmm. Like, so as a fan of both,
Right.
I was just super impressed with like, dude, you actually put a lot of thought into this. And I still, again, have not even seen the director's cut. I thought the theatrical, the 2.5 hour, was, like I said, a borderline masterpiece. And I've heard the director's cut is much better.
Okay.
So that's part of why I was so excited to talk about it. From a horror perspective, to me the most horrifying thing in that entire movie is little Jacob Tremblay.
Yes.
when the van full of people take him out. Like, that is one of the most upsetting things I've ever seen.
Yes.
In any movie, and definitely in recent horror movies, one of the most like profoundly like disturbing and upsetting things I've seen in a long time.
Well, see, and that's the thing with Midsommar. The
And
opener of that.
Talk about another movie that was profoundly upsetting and disturbing, but also absolutely hysterical. That is the thing I keep coming back to with that movie, is the comedy in it. You do not expect.
No.
That is a very funny movie considering what it's about.
Right, and what's going on, yeah.
Yes. And again, have not watched the director's cut of that either. Both of them are sitting right by my... But I mean, you're about to hear what I was distracted with all of this other stuff. Also, side note, again, we're trying to stay on task. Succession Season 3 started this past weekend, and it's pretty much all that I'm thinking about.
Okay. I don't do that. If it's literally no time to die.
TV, I make an exception for, and theatrical, I make an exception. If I'm following a show already, I'm not going to put a capper on it because...
I mean, I technically did like What If, and I'm up on Why the Last Man.
I never finished What If. Did you hear about Why the Last Man?
No. What?
It's already been canceled.
Really?
Before even before they even aired all of the first season, they announced that it's canceled at FX. Yeah.
Huh.
I didn't make it past the second one just because I got distracted with other stuff. I was planning on it, but I got to be honest, now that it's like a one and done season, I'm like, and they said they are shopping it to other places, but literally like 2 days ago, they were like, it's canceled. Yeah. It's done. Because I guess nobody's fucking watching it.
I am.
But again, case in point, myself, I was excited for it, enjoyed what I saw, and just fell off naturally. So I'm wondering if people got a lot of shit going on right now. Like, give a show a chance. But obviously, the production costs versus what the return they were seeing.
But they should have waited till after The Walking Dead was over. If they waited till The Walking Dead finished this year, and then they aired it as like, hey, you want your like comic book dystopian fix with like, it's not zombies. It's just, one dude and a bunch of chicks.
I think that's honest. That's the saddest thing overall with that whole show is like it took so long to get this incarnation of it even to the screen, and for them to be like, yeah, and you're not going to be able to like finish telling the story. It's got to be so fucking frustrating because it does. Honestly, at this point, feel like one of those properties that like they should have done it 10 years ago or not at all.
Right.
Like it should have happened when there was the initial thrust to like, let's fucking do this.
Where's something like Umbrella Academy that's been out for a while, but then hits on Netflix and people are like, give me season 3, You never know what's going to transform from the medium back and forth, which is one thing I want to get into. Honestly, when we start talking
another
about
one where
these
I'm
movies.
like, rights are what they are, and I don't know how all that shook out. But yeah, if Why the Last Man was literally the same show, produced the same way it was, etc. Again, I say this having seen 2 episodes. You're obviously way deeper into it. I would venture if the exact same show was not is it an FX on Hulu exclusive?
Yes.
Or is it airing on FX? No, because it's like full on R-rated.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's FX on Hulu exclusive in the same way that I believe like Devs was.
Right.
The Alex Garland show, and a few others have been. I feel like if that same show is on Netflix, it's a 5-season guarantee. You get to do the whole story, like just the audience base. Literally, I feel like it would be like in the top 10, people would be talking about it. It's just a result of like where it's available,
right?
Because the user base is still. I mean, even for Hulu, it's nothing compared to the fucking Netflix juggernaut. It's another topic for another day. You want to get spooky?
Yeah.
All right.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Yeah. Let's get nuts.
So we put a poll out based
did.
off movies that we gave, and my idea was, my initial idea was like, let's take 2 from each decade and let's pit them against each other, kind of like we did with The Waterboy.
Right.
And after the poll stuff, you were like, well, let's do this and this, and I was like, why don't we just do the winner of each decade as like a supersized thing? Now I'm glad we did, knowing that you haven't watched those 2 other things, and we might not be doing those as a 2x2. So
I could make it happen.
You could, but my whole thing was like, if you're going to do that, I hope you watch them. I'll take them now.
I know that's the issue.
But, so, anyway.
There's not a lot of Midsommar director's cuts floating around out there. I think they only made 1,000 copies.
Exactly. Same thing with like the.
And I don't think you can just stream it or like. I think Apple TV Plus maybe has exclusive access to the director's cut or something weird like that.
Well, I have been wanting to watch that one show with
There's a lot of stuff on
Jason
there that
Momoa.
I vaguely want to check out, but
Yeah.
nothing that I've been like, I have to see this.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll run down what was up against each other
Absolutely.
and what had the votes.
So you want to start with the 70s? We're
70s,
going to go
yeah.
chronological and be boring?
We'll do
We can do that?
We'll do 70s.
Okay. Yeah.
So we put your pick was Black Christmas.
It was.
Mine was Dawn of the Dead. Black Christmas got 36.4% of the vote.
Which I was honestly pleased to see.
Yeah.
That it got even more than just my vote.
Right. And but Dawn of the Dead was the outright winner at 63.6% of the
We
vote.
should mention everything that we pitted against each other are movies that we both would have been happy discussing.
There's no love lost here.
Yes.
Except maybe for this next one. You put up Hellraiser.
We're just burning through it immediately? Okay, go ahead.
Well, you put up Hellraiser.
I did?
I put up Near Dark.
Right.
And Hellraiser, it got 54.5% of the vote.
Oh, it did come out on top.
It did come out on top,
Just by
yeah.
a smidge. They were neck and neck when you
Right.
had shown me before, or last time I checked in on it.
Yeah. Then we let's just jump all the way to the 2000s. Why not? Because this was a close race for a minute, but then your pick edged it out. I put up Splinter.
Great movie.
A little unknown horror movie for most people. And my thing was that I did watch this, like, I think it was an Amazon produced. It was on Amazon, or maybe it was through Shudder. But it was 50 horror movies you've never seen. And I was like, you know what? I've seen about half of these.
Right.
And like midway through the 20s was Splinter. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. And then we talked about this, and I was like, fuck it. I'm going to throw that up there because I think it's a little unknown in that late in the decade. But I do think that the one that you picked, which everybody voted on, The Devil's Rejects, I feel like that kind of defines that decade. Only maybe eked out by something like a Hostel, which we can have that talk when we get there.
I mean, we can just talk about 2005 in general.
Right.
Because I have often cited that as the year that basically saved horror for me, when I was pretty much ready to, like, do I even give a shit about this genre anymore? And there was 4 movies in particular that I'm thinking about that came out in pretty quick succession that I was completely blown away by, and I was like... And some of them have aged better than others, but yeah, so we'll save that for the 2000s. We'll build to that moment in time. And then the 90s.
The 90s. I swear to God, we already talked about this movie together. Cape Fear.
I have just done extended bits about Cape Fear on this podcast.
I could have swear to God you did a whole thing.
I love
It's
it,
like,
dude.
Counselor, you did like a whole De Niro impression. I thought Why did I watch the movie then? Did I just watch it to watch it?
I don't know. I probably did, and I probably showed you the Heidecker thing of him doing Nick Nolte.
Yes.
My daughter. Robert De Niro. He's trying to fuck my daughter.
Oh my God. Yeah. So Cape Fear got 27.3% of the vote. And a whopping, it's actually the highest voted thing we have on here is 1992's Candyman.
Because I also wonder how many
sweets
people.
to the sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that, of course, is that we just got a Legacy sequel like a few months ago, and a lot of people are just now catching up with it.
One thing I want to tell you before we jump into this,
sure.
I thought was pretty funny. I've been listening to Strange and Unexplained with Daisy Egan.
Okay.
And she talked about this, basically a thing in Chicago in the 50s and 60s where you could literally, you could just open your medicine cabinet and guess what? There's a whole other apartment back there, right? Mm-hmm. So she says, she's talking about this, whatever. And she goes, in the 90s, they made a movie called Candyman about this. Spoiler alert. I totally watched it with a group of friends, and when I was in high school or college or whatever, I totally watched it with Jordan Peele, and yeah, we dated for a little bit. And he's got a new Candyman coming out now. Obviously, she recorded before that one was released, but I was like, that's wild that he's sitting there watching it with Candyman and with her, and then it's not. It never comes out and tells you it's based off that. And it's weird that it is from The Forbidden, which is a Clive Barker story that has nothing to do with that. So it's obvious that the director of the original perfectly in tone, I feel like, pulls that into it and makes, very much makes Cabrini Green a character in that movie. And then to see that like put on display again in the new one was really dope. So I don't know if you want to just like, I don't know if you want to do like a compare and contrast, because I mean, we know all these movies. These aren't like, it's not gonna be deep for us to dive into like, oh, I didn't watch Black Christmas again, so I can't talk about it. It's like you could talk to me about it for an hour right now if you wanted to. So I don't know if you want to compare and contrast the decade and like talk about what was going on and why the movie matters in that decade or what.
Yeah, I guess mainly why of all the options, why'd you pick that one?
Yeah,
and
I think that's better than trying to like pit them against each other.
So
pick a decade, any decade. Let's go.
Let's go with the 80s.
Okay.
I went with Hellraiser mainly because it's one that I think my first exposure to it was like that compilation DVD. What was that shit called? It had like all these horror clips and then Boogeyman.
Yes.
And then they did a follow-up that was all action movies. And that was the first time I ever saw the They Live fight.
Right.
For instance. But in this Boogeyman collection, what was this, like early 2000s-ish?
Yeah.
So yeah, it had basically like, here's a greatest hits scene of like all the classic big slasher dudes. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I felt like we watched it multiple times or whatever. But that was my first exposure to Hellraiser, but I never sought it out.
Right.
And so it's this weird one that like I didn't really see until not adulthood, but like I probably watched it for the first time in college and I was like, this movie's fucking great. Like I was like, I knew all the sequels and everything, but it was just one of those I had never gone back to. And I did the thing in college where I was like, holy shit, first one's great. Follow up with the sequel. And I'm like, dude, this really good sequel. It's pretty solid. Yeah. And then get to the third one and go, oh, okay.
Here's where
I see
jump in the shark.
I see where these are going for like and then I tapped out. And even though I have the collection that you've bought me, I have never seen it. I should go watch like the Scott Derrickson one.
You should watch one with Henry Cavill at least.
I think that one's, what is that, Revelations or something? I don't know.
And then there's one with Craig Briccio.
And now they're
Craig Schiffer.
And now they are rebooting it, and it sounds very intriguing. So I'm totally down for it. But I think it's because I came to it a little later in the game, and in my head it was this like phantasmagorical, just like blood and guts fest. That's all I really knew of it, was the imagery of Pinhead and some of the other Cenobites.
Right.
And you go back and watch that first one, and it's like reading a really good, like, modern Edgar Allan Poe story or something, which essentially is what Clive Barker was. He was not like he's not a Stephen King in my mind. It was way more rooted in like the Gothic and like mythological things. Not that he was even like Lovecraftian. I think of him more in the vein of like an Edgar Allan Poe. The maladies of like the human heart and stuff. And then what he brings to it is this crazy like sci-fi element of the Cenobites and like creature effects and like all this other stuff. And I guess the other thing that blew me away, because I knew of it as a Clive Barker story, but like I didn't expect him to be what I think. I wish he directed more shit, because that was the other thing I remember being super impressed by, was like some of the editing choices and the way they like tell the flashback kind of fluidly. I think it was one of the first times I had really seen that done. Right. It was a little jarring at the time, honestly, but now you look at it and it's like, no, like there's a lot of movies that use that editing language essentially. And not that there weren't before. It's just one of the first things that like popped to me about it. And you get really drawn into, like you said, this romantic, like semi-erotic story, and it's like, but I love that they're all these like pretty deeply like fucked up people, and they're all kind of shitty towards each other. Right. And then you have like the one girl who, it's like, she's the one guiding element of like, oh, it almost is like an 80s teen horror movie, but not really at all. It's so adult, and like the marriage drama, and like my brother, he cheated on me with my brother and shit. And then you know, as some of
drawing men back to the house just to like fucking murder them.
Absolutely. I mean, I need to friggin'. I'm terrible with names in this cast because, you know, they're not like names.
Yeah, just Doug Bradley's the only one you realize.
Yeah, of course you have Doug Bradley as Pinhead, but and that was the other thing overall is like so much that the movie is a build up to the Cenobites. Like they're barely in it.
Yeah, that's
the
thing.
And because they're not like this natural like slasher thing that you're expecting, you know, the way he was presented to me in that Boogeyman collection was like, oh, he's like another Michael Myers or like more in the vein of Freddy Krueger because he talks, but like, you know, he's more into like leather and like whips and chains and shit as opposed to like he's not all burnt up, but he like looks, you know, like a weird freak. And you know, that was my conception of it. And then when you actually get into it, it's like, no, that's why I constantly go back to it is because it's a really like
it's a really good
story.
subversion
like,
of the genre in the middle of a decade that was, oh, let's slap it together.
Completely burnt out.
Let's just fucking go for broke. Let's show as much blood as we can. Let's do the craziest thing. Slap it on video and let's go.
Excuse me. Claire Higgins as Julia.
Yes.
Is like one of those, to me, iconic female horror performances that does not get talked about often enough. But she's like phenomenal in that movie. You could say everybody else is like of varying degrees, but that's also kind of the charm. It is still a little rough around the edges. It is his first feature, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're so impressed with like the storytelling, the balls of it all, and it's just like you said, it's salacious. It is genuinely subversive where you're like, this is twisted. And if you like that kind of thing of like, you could broadly look at this as like, it's kind of like a Lifetime movie with like crazy gore murder in it. And again, intergalactic
cosmic.
Excuse me. Cosmic pain.
You say cosmic. You say cosmic, but that's the only thing I think that people you lose in the sequels is that like this is very much the Cenobites. You invite them in, and they
show you.
Oh my dude! What treasures we have to show you!
Dude.
Like.
No, dude, my favorite is untold pleasures that will tear your soul apart.
Yeah. And the idea that it's like, okay, Frank was this dude who like, he fucked all the time and he was on drugs.
Living life to the max.
Yeah, just like trying to get all the senses open at one time. And this box is going to offer him, we'll even go full Joy Division, unknown pleasures. Yeah. You know, you're going to get that, right? And you don't ever think that it's going to be like the pleasure of like your flesh getting torn from your body. But there is also a subset of the fetish community that loves piercing, loves blood play, knife play, all that.
Whatever the suspension
on top. Yeah. So it taps into all that. And it's one of these things that's like, you can say cosmic if you want to give the credit of like that's him pulling a little bit of Lovecraft. I have always taken it as basically the Cenobites will take you to hell, and hell is this place where like pleasure and pain meet, and you are constantly left there, and you cannot leave. But if you do somehow get out, they will find you. Once you open this box, there's no going back. It's the same thing of like we talked about a little while ago with Candyman. Just don't fucking say his name. And it's so easy. Don't play with this box, and you'll be fine. Put the box away. Yeah, give it to somebody else. You know, just give it away.
Yeah.
But I also know, like, I'm a fidgeter. I would probably accidentally hit
I
it.
100% would.
And it would open up.
I could not have it around me.
Right.
I could not have a prop of that around me either.
Yeah.
No good.
It's like, no way. Like, yeah. But
one of my favorite moments in Cabin in the Woods is when they find the basement full of all the different shit.
Right.
And of course they all have bets on like what it's going to be.
Right.
And they pick up the box. It's like, no, it's not back down.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
What was I gonna say? This one in the second one, they do have that idea that like they are demonic, they are from hell. But when you get into the latter ones, basically Pinhead just like shows up and like makes people like repent for their sins and like tortures them for like calling him. It's not like a we'll make you a deal. And I don't know how far you've gotten if you got to the third one, but the third one has my favorite scene where it's basically Doug Bradley as this explorer, and he's like, he's done everything, he's tried to find everything, much like Frank.
Right.
And when he opens the box, you see this thing of basically like him getting pulled in, stripped off, and like basically, you know,
It's him being
singed
transformed
into Pinhead with the
yeah.
things that, and like that's how he exists now. And it's
That's
weirdly
the best part of 3,
which is like the
that
opening
sequence.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then like the whole nightclub owner, all of that's just
yeah. Which I mean, you know, but for the first one, like, and it's such a it's
the
one of those
first
things
one
like
is a straight up classic,
Right,
Like
because-
should be right there along with
Right.
some of the other top and again, you can remove the franchise from it, even though I think Hellbound is.
Oh
pretty
yeah, that's a
fucking
great
solid.
sequel
I think the
to
second one's
keep
pretty
going with the daughter, because that probably is one of the I mean the whole movie's just like whoa, but it is one of the more like sorrowful, like oh damn, is the moment when she comes back home and realizes that like her dad is
Her uncle is wearing her
dad's
dad's
skin suit.
so creepy,
And it's
dude.
just like, you know that like the dad really would never have like done anything wrong, and like it could have just, the two of them could have gotten out and it could have been okay.
Yeah.
Leave your wife and your brother to do whatever weird fucking sex shit they're gonna do in the attic, but just to know like nope, he's dead, and now your uncle is alive and wearing him as a skin suit. It's just it's one of the most
tough
harrowing
break.
like yeah, because you're just like, well fuck, like it doesn't matter if you make it out of here, like you're on your own. It's what are you going to do? And then you get into Hellbound and you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah. They're mad at her for double crossing. She's like, oh, I gave you Frank. You're not coming back for me.
Fair and square.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of those available on Shudder, if I'm not mistaken, if you've never seen them.
Yes.
Highly recommend, even though we just spoiled them. And again, if you're listening to this,
we can't even do it justice.
I'm assuming you've probably seen Hellraiser.
Yeah. If you haven't, you definitely know someone who has.
I was going to say, and if you like me and like waited forever and you've just been like, oh, I don't know if that's my style. I didn't think it was my style either. I think the first one is like uncommonly good. Very good movie. Yeah. What was your pick?
My pick was nARK.
Which basically, I will let you reiterate your pitch, because I have notably, we're talking about stuff I watched in college. I saw it in college for the first time after, this is post Hurt Locker.
Right.
Probably post Zero Dark 30 as well.
Yeah.
I'm imagining. And of course, I love Point Break. I'm into Bigelow, and I was like, I've always heard about this one. I've seen it in like the 100 Scariest Movie Moments on Bravo, stuff like that. I'm aware of it. I've seen clips. But I never sat and watched it.
Yeah.
And I did, and I was kind of indifferent towards it. That's the best I could describe it. And I've been meaning to give it another proper shot, because I know people love it, and I love a lot of people in it, and I do love Catherine Bigelow as a director, so I need to re-explore and reassess, simply because I don't know why I didn't respond to it then. But, my movie watching brain's completely different now.
Yeah.
Still is. It's always evolving.
Well, I think it's one of the reasons maybe why is that not shortly after this you have one of the best vampire movies of all time. And if you don't know that nARK is a vampire movie, going into it, you don't know what to make of it. But the thing that always creeped me out about it, that I was like, what the hell is this, is the box art in Sycamore and Blockbuster always had a really fucked up Bill Paxton.
Yes.
And I always thought for some reason that nARK was actually like Nightbreed, or like one of these other crazy outsider,
it
like,
looked like a...
what the hell is this? I don't want to touch it.
No, I agree with you. It did not look like
Right.
a vampire movie.
No.
At all.
And so...
And you didn't know it was Bill Paxton.
No, you didn't, because he's got the
Because
sunglasses.
we probably would have been like, oh, we know Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Twister.
Yeah, exactly.
We can trust him.
Which is weird, because isn't he Billy? He's Billy in Twister. Like, they call him Bill. Like, it's
I think
weird.
so, yeah.
Speaking of that, I did get on the road to go to work today, and fucking Child in Time came on. I definitely skipped it to like 3 minutes. Yeah. Anyway. So, growing up, I'm like, okay, whatever. nARK is probably my second favorite vampire movie of the 80s. Lost Boys being number one. And it is the only vampire movie of the 80s, like Lost Boys, that says you are not completely fucked if you get bitten by a vampire. You have a way back. And to me, inherently, like, there is a a thing. I know Michael doesn't get bitten in Lost Boys, but he could be. He's drank blood, so he.
Sorry, so side note real quick. Is Fright Night the same year?
I believe so.
As Lost Boys and Near Dark? Is that possible?
I thought Friday Night was 86.
You might be right.
It might be like a year or two before.
85. Never mind.
85, yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna watch The Hunger at some point. I've never seen it. People keep it.
It's on HBO right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I definitely want to watch it.
Highly recommend.
But
I think that's the first Tony Scott?
yes. So the thing that instantly drew me into Near Dark was, I've talked about it before, it definitely is like a night movie. Like just where the night could take you. It starts with Adrian Passador literally just showing up to like, he's a cowboy gonna go out for a beer. And like he meets May and he just goes on this adventure, and lo and behold, she's actually traveling around the country in a fucking van with a bunch of vampires, and you were supposed to be the first person she killed. She didn't. Now you're stuck with them.
Sounds a lot like Lost Boys.
Right.
I feel like this was my thing too, probably, is I was just... That's probably why I brushed it off and was not as focused on like because of the familiar plot elements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, I need to watch it to figure out why I didn't vibe with it. And I'm also wondering, like, did I watch it like at night? Like, maybe that's, you know what? I don't have to work tomorrow.
You should definitely check it out.
I have it
tonight,
downstairs,
dude.
and I definitely didn't watch it on Blu-ray the first time.
Yeah.
So that might be part
in
of it.
In all honesty, a lot of copies up until the most recent releases of them have not been that great. Like the DVD I watched of it the first go round wasn't really a great transfer.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which you owned, I want to say, at least 2 different versions of when we were younger. And that movie looked like trash on both of those transfers. I watched it I've watched it subsequently better quality, but I feel like whatever they have on Shudder right now is like a 4K restoration. It's like as good as it could possibly look. And the nighttime photography in that movie is amazing. Like for years I thought it was like, oh, this is like really, really grimy, like really low budget.
Right.
But when you actually like see how presumably it was meant to be seen, or how it would have been projected in like its highest quality, you're like, no, it's actually extremely well shot in the way it captures like moonlight on the forest. Like that's the only thing illuminating them. Like it's not overly lit, but you can see everything that's going on. Like, so maybe I'll throw on that Blu-ray after.
And I will. I mean, basically,
After you leave.
I don't know when they got together, but it's basically like Catherine Bigelow went to the set of Aliens. It was like you, and you come be in this vampire movie. So she gets Lance Henriksen, Jeanette Goldstein.
I forget
Paxton.
Jeanette Goldstein was in there too.
And then she's in Rivers. I don't know the actor's name. She's in River's Edge as well. It's Keanu's younger brother in River's Edge. You know the face. You know, you'll recognize it when you watch it. But and the other thing too is Adrian Passador. Like I don't know Pasdar, whatever his name is. I don't know what he was doing up until this point. So I feel like maybe the reason why a lot of people are like, is because he's not a Corey or Kiefer Sutherland or something like that. Like a big draw.
Yeah,
but he's still really good.
There's no name.
There's no name in the lead guy, but it doesn't take. And maybe that's why it resonated with me, because it's like I know who it is because I had started watching Heroes when I first saw this. So I was like, oh my god, that's fucking Peter Petrelli's older brother. Great, you know. And I started wondering, like, what's he been doing? What the hell? So not like knowing that going in, and knowing that he probably wasn't like a big huge name at the time, I think that allowed me to kind of get into it more, because it's like I'm not coming at it as like, well, this was, you know, Johnny Depp or some big star from the 80s. This was their vampire movie. It allowed me to kind of slip into it and think of like, well, what would I do? Because there's a family aspect. Like he's literally, it's just him, his dad, and his sister. He's a cowboy. And then you've got all the shit that they do on the road. Really neat vampire effects. The lore behind it or whatever. Like one of my favorite things is like, he talking to Lance Henriksen, he's like, how long you been alive? He says that, let's just say I fought in the war. I fought for the South. We lost. And I'm like, oh, you get it. Like, even though this is the 80s, this guy's been driving around the fucking desert, you know, hiding from the sun for hundreds of years, at least 100 years, you know. It's just, I don't know. It's a different take on vampires. It's not flashy and stylized, but it's not like campy like I would say Lost Boys is. It isn't flashy and stylized like The Hunger, and it isn't like whatever you want to call Fright Night, because Fright Night to me is like its own thing too, which is like to me Fright Night kind of blends that classic vampire with like modern 80s.
Not even from a photography standpoint, but what it honestly seems like the precursor to is John Carpenter's vampires.
Yeah.
Like that, and obviously that book, the source material.
Right.
It seems like it's more in that vein of like, okay, let's throw them into a modern context and like practically speaking, what's another way they could exist outside of like stay in your coffin during the day and like all the stuff we've seen a billion times before. It's the other thing I like. Fright Night is a great bridge between like it's essentially a classic vampire setup. It's more of like a Hammer horror movie.
Oh yeah.
But it has this 80s teen angle and also 80s level effects of just like amazing shit in there.
Right.
So that one like takes it in a different direction, and then Lost Boys is like to me the perfect fusion of like it's fucking like just
it's 80s as hell.
What a fucking ride! But yeah, it's iconic. It's 80s as hell, but it's like
it's not the Goonies.
It's one of the best
because that's what it was pitched as. It was pitched as like this is the Goonies with vampires.
Well, and then you have that movie. It's called Monster Squad.
Right.
You know.
So
and even that's a little more hard edge than you would even say Goonies, which I know Goonies, if you go back and watch it, is like maybe this should have been the first PG-13. Does it predate Temple of Doom? I forget. It's PG, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shit in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, okay, I will watch Near Dark. After you leave this evening, after dark.
Yeah. Where do you want to go next? 90s, 70s? 2000?
You call it. I call it the 80s.
Let's go 70s then.
All right.
What'd you pick?
I picked Black Christmas.
Yes. Which I could successfully say now I've watched every single one, and the first one is the best. Fuck that piece of shit remake they just came out with.
Well, I mean, to me, fuck both of them, to be clear.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with 2006.
Black Xmas, no. Trash. They're all trash. Nobody should...
It's Black Xmas. It's not Black Christmas. This new one is Black Christmas. You can shit all over it. I don't like that one.
I was very disappointed by both.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I put it on here because I was curious how many people would actually vote for it.
Right.
B, I'll take any excuse to talk about it because every time I rewatch this movie, it is one of those, quite like Suspiria, that just continues to creep further and further up my list.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I would say Black Christmas is probably my third favorite horror film of all time, after The Shining and probably John Carpenter's The Thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do a new definitive ranking at some point of all the classics, but Black Christmas is just I think a straight up like near flawless movie.
Mm-hmm.
And of course is a hard one to go back to if you've been raised on the genre for some people, because I feel like it hits you one of two ways. You either go back and watch it and you're like, oh, holy shit, this is like, I mean, this is like this is the text, this is everything all in one. Like, every trope or like reference point in a movie like Scream, for instance, you're like, yeah, Scream breaks it up as like, oh yeah, this is a reference to this, this, and this, but it's like, but all of this shit
is Black Christmas.
In Black Christmas.
Right, yeah.
Like every element of it. So when I did see it, years removed from my first introduction to Halloween, and again, not that they have to be pitted against each other, but realizing that there was something that predated that so thoroughly like set the template for how you make these sort of movies. And I know some people will argue Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the very first original kernel of the slasher, and some people would even argue further back from that it's like a Bay of Blood from Mario Bava or something like that.
Or Psycho.
Yes, if you want to take but the modern incarnation of what we know as slashers, it's like, yeah, I could see, you could say Texas Chainsaw kind of starts it off with like group of teens, masked killer, etc. But that movie
doing
is
shit they shouldn't do.
Exactly. That oh my god, I just rewatched it recently. I just told you I rewatched it on Shudder recently. My favorite afternoon horror movie, afternoon into evening.
Because it's too scary to watch at night. I get it.
Well, it's just, I mean, most of the movies during the day, it's like, but it'll fuck you up even more if you watch it in the day. That's what's great about it, as opposed to most horror movies that play better at night. I think Texas Chainsaw, like in the middle of the afternoon on a hot
Scary
day,
as shit, dude.
It is terrifying.
It's not.
It's still, dude. So not to.
We can get up. It's fine.
I know we're meant to be talking about Black Christmas, but here's my thing with Texas Chainsaw, and again, we will save a lot of this conversation. But Halloween Kills has some very brutal moments in it. And that movie came out a week or two ago.
Right.
Okay? And even as brutal as those things were, there was rarely a time where I was genuinely like, oh, or ah. Like, none of them really got me because it was more the spectacle of it. Like, we'll get into more of how I felt about that. I want to keep it vague. But to go back to, there's only 3 actual, like, on-screen murders in Texas Chainsaw.
Right.
Technically, the 4th, you never see her die. That would be the one who gets put on the meat hook.
Right.
And then is in the fridge, and you see her, like, she's still alive when last dude comes in. But you never see her ultimate fate. You just assume, obviously, she was fucking murdered.
Right.
But the initial one is still one of the most visceral and terrifying moments I've ever seen.
Yes.
And part of it is because it has come after a half hour of nothing much happening. But the other thing I had somewhat forgotten, the movie just starts like you're already like your skin is crawling before you even see the first image because of the opening John Larroquette narration, and then the camera, and just seeing like the little fragments of like body parts and all that shit. And that's before you see the very opening shot, which is the crazy gravestone with the 2 bodies, and like they essentially look like they're melted, like the flesh is melting off of them in real time, baking in the Texas sun, super atmospheric, like sand flowing through, and you're wherever, and you're like, this was made for like not like there's such artistry just to like the opening of this, like, oh my god. And it starts with this like oppressive tone. You have the weird like the hitchhiker and everything. But yeah, it's the build to what ends up being an extremely quick moment of violence where you don't even really see that much.
No.
You see a splatter of blood across him, and the kicker is him still twitching.
Yeah.
And again, great physical acting on the actor's part of when he comes down with that next blow, and the sound effects is doing a lot of work, but to like go completely limp immediately, and the timing is perfect, and the transition from that like wriggling to boom, and then pulls him in, door is slammed, like you hear the concussion of that, like that still in probably like that ends up being like 3 or 4 individual shots or setups. Runs less than like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And is more impactful and more memorable than anything I just saw in Halloween Kills. And that goes for also when the last guy gets taken out. And again, it's just, he gets hammered to the head as well. But the sound effects, the staging, everything is so visceral. And it's quick and you don't see a lot of shit. But as far as I'm concerned, those are like, you feel like they're happening to you when they're happening. That's like, the movie itself is fucking like knocking you the fuck out. And I know part of it is having seen so many things in the intervening years, or whatever, but like, I had a bit of a numbness to like some of the kills in Halloween Kills where I was like, okay, like I see the staging and like, oh, that was creative or this or that, but I none of them got me. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because there's a certain element after something so real as that when you start to see like people dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping, you're like, at what point, how real is this? Because I feel like that's the main thing with this. It's the main thing with Black Christmas, and we can argue, even though it's out of the realm of reality, some of the things with Dawn of the Dead, which was my pick, is that for its time when it came out, everything was as real as it could be in pushing the envelope. Like the opening scene for Dawn, when they kick in the door and they shoot somebody's face off, you know, like blow dude completely away. Like, I knew what it was when I saw it. I had seen a lot more since then. So when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, wow. Like, it almost looks real, but I know it's the 70s. I know what they had to use to make it. So It's not as jarring. But I also think of, like, what if I was a fucking teenager going to see that in the theaters? And that's where the movie starts. Okay, well, I don't trust anything that's coming after this, because if this is where we're at to start with, where the hell am I going to be when the movie's over? And it's the same thing with Texas Chainsaw.
I was going to say, and let's continue to talk about openings. Black Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
The first kill in that, like, sets such an incredible tone. Mm-hmm. And talk about, again, visceral, shocking, like, all of these set-piece deaths in that stick with you and are memorable. But that's not a movie in the same way that with Texas Chainsaw would say, it's not a movie about the kills.
Right.
It's not something where you go back to those things and want to watch them because it's like, oh my God, that was so much fun. They fucking stick with you. Those are the moments you dread coming up when you're rewatching the movie. You look forward to the in-between moments, the character stuff. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Because, case in point with Texas Chainsaw, once her brother in the wheelchair gets taken out, like, it is it's a chase movie for the next half hour. I mean, until she's captured, and then you have one of the most insane scenes in the history of cinema where you're like, is everybody in this scene okay? Like, how did they shoot this? Are these real people?
Did they all make it to the theatrical premiere?
Like, what? Yeah, what's going on here? This is a little too long. This is like, you can cut to something else, right? Oh wait, we're just trapped in here. Okay. So oh my God, dude. And okay, sorry. To get back to my baby though, Black Christmas, my sweet, sweet Black Christmas. It's a little hard-edged. Mm-hmm. It's a little cynical, which I like about it, which feels more like a 90s horror movie almost. It almost feels like a post-slasher the way some of these characters talk.
Right.
Even though it's, like we said, the proto-slasher in a lot of ways. Incredible performances all around. I think Olivia Hussey is like one of the most underrated scream queens. I don't know that she did much other horror. I'm honestly not aware, but her performance as Chris in this is just like incredible. Genuine, like, fear. Again, I feel like a lot of people still have not seen it. It's readily available on Shudder right now. You can find it out there.
Give them the year so that they don't get confused.
Black Christmas, 1976. 2 years prior to Halloween, 2 years after Texas Chainsaw Massacre. These are the building blocks, if you will.
Yes.
TCM into Black Christmas, into Halloween. But there's a climactic scene with, again, this killer who, I love it. And again, we'll get to that episode. I don't know why I want to keep framing everything through Halloween kills and what I didn't like about it. But I'm going to stop doing that. But I love that in Black Christmas, we have a killer who we never see full on. Mm-hmm. We're either in the POV of, or we get these very obscured, like, glances at. Mm-hmm. I think the most we ever really get is the eyeball scene, which is fucking terrifying when you see it through that crack. So many effective set pieces in that movie, and and it also manages to have the genuine mystery factor of like, well, who done it? Who done the crime? Like, we got to figure this out, and everybody's a suspect. And then you got the cops working on it, and like the practical, like, procedural elements of like, it's the 70s. Here's how we trace a call. Here's how we, like, relay things. Here's how we bug a phone, and like, it just all of this shit. And then also I feel like very, we think of the slasher genre as mainly, especially 80s wise, mainly focused on teens. Sometimes we'd go into college, but like it's a high school thing in a lot of cases with a lot of these. And so the idea that it was like, it's college, it's this music conservatory, and it's the 70s, so like everybody looks a little older than they actually are anyways. But the idea that like these are not like, they don't feel like kids because they feel like young adults, like young professionals, like about to start like their professional career sort of thing. And it's there's a music conservatory there. They're not all music students, but Keir Dullea is. Anyways, and yeah, it has a fantastic opening that's incredibly unsettling, that sets the tone, and then it's another one of those that is just content to like, let's just creep for a little bit. Yeah. Let's just like, we'll get to know some of these characters and there'll be this creeping tension, but we can work in some comedy too. I think pound for pound, not that we have to make them face off. I know you guys have varying opinions on this, but I think it's definitely got more laughs than Halloween 78. Juxtaposed with, again, some incredibly unsettling, like bone-chilling moments and kills and tension, but again, it's also a little more cynical. It's a little more mean than Halloween 78 is. And I don't know if that's what I gravitate towards in it. The fact that there was never a sequel, the fact there was never an attempt to explain, here's who this person, I mean, Black Xmas, basically, that's part of my whole issue, is like, it gives you this whole backstory to set you up with this killer, and then like it tries to have a twist on top of it, but it all, in my mind, kind of comes to nothing, and I had no investment in it. I way prefer the original, where we don't know anything about this person. Is it multiple personalities? Like, what's going on with the multiple voices? Where are these voices coming from? How do they not hear them in the house if they're like in the same vicinity? Some of the like volume, just all of it just is constantly playing a trick on you. And because it has no clear resolution, and it just leaves it on that note, and it never got touched after that. We never had a movie like Halloween 2 in the 80s that literally was like, hey, remember the most unsettling ending possibly ever, where evil is just lurking in the fucking suburbs and all you hear is his breathing and you don't know where he is? Well, here he is again. And now he's gonna kill some more people. Like, because it never had
you guys
that.
all went to Friday the 13th, and now we got to do this. So you're welcome. You did this to yourself. Yeah.
Talk about, and respect to Halloween Kills for coming in here for all the Friday the 13th fans who are like, fuck all these rights issues. We just want a sequel. And they're like, hey, we got you. We got you. We'll basically just turn Michael into Jason for you guys. Don't fucking worry about it.
Yeah.
More on that in a future episode.
Hopefully we didn't write ourselves into a hole we can't get out of.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
A hole we can't.
Let's call the Game of Thrones guys and see if we can figure this thing out.
Get Benioff and Weiss on the case. They know how to.
They need to get Woodward and Birdstein in here and get those two guys to make the third one. That would be dope.
Oh my god! Every time you say it, I have Benson and Moorhead.
I know it's Benson and Moorhead. Every time you say
it, I can barely remember their names.
I did show.
Although they should play Woodward and Bernstein in a new version of All the President's Men that also involves time travel and some sort of time distillation,
where
like
there's
their previous.
Yes, and the time the time thing. Yeah, the time thing that's after them is a complete POV shot, and you never know who the time guy is that's lurking for them. We get some Black Christmas in there. And the whole thing is they're trying to stop a zombie apocalypse that could happen, 2 years later, 1978. Yeah. Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Sequel to 1968's
Night of the Living Dead.
Yes.
There are very few movies that straight up, I mean, we're kind of talking about movies that started a genre, contributed to what we think of the tenets of a genre. But there are very few movies that you can point to that are literally like, that didn't start a genre, that started an entire subculture, an entire like movement in cinema, comic books, radio, like, fucking name a medium that basically the influence of Night of the Living Dead did not stretch to it. So
Right.
it's impossible.
Mm-hmm. Because I think it's also it's very rare in a subgenre that someone can come in and say, I'm going to be the alpha omega, and I'm going to give you a sleeper that you don't know you really love, because I did rewatch Day, and Day is still by far like slowly becoming better and better every time I watch it. But to watch Night,
I'm gonna give it a spin. In a day or
you
two.
should. But to watch Night, to go from night to dawn, I mean, it has to be. I equate that. If I'm a kid and I know what Night of the Living Dead is, it's wild, it's revolutionary. There's a black guy that's the hero, and then what happens to him? And then I start out and it's like, okay, this is that guy again. I would have to imagine that it's the way I felt watching the Zack Snyder remake in 2004, where I was like, I know what this is. Let's just, all right. And to be enthralled and just floored about, like, holy shit, this guy, back when he, like, made good movies, it was crazy, Somebody get this guy everywhere. And then it's like somebody heard me, and I was like, they didn't know. I was like, I'm just kidding. Like, maybe one or two others, and that's it. But just to, like I said, to start out with, like, and it's one of my favorite things, because not a lot of movies do this. Some of the ones I've watched recently, it is really bothering me that you have like your heel is out of your sock. You look like a straight up hobo. Like, do you need a bindle, or do you need to catch the next train, Christopher Lloyd? Do you need to get out? Do you even wonder if they lock their doors? That's a scary moment. Anyway, so. I thought you were going to do it. I thought you were going to do the line. So to start out with Dawn.
I bet they don't even lock their doors.
Mr. Wilson! Okay.
Yeah, sorry for my socks. Did my feet stink?
No, I don't even wear socks. So, like, I notice when people who wear socks have holes in them. It's weird.
Thanks for calling me out on the pod.
It's okay.
Now Mom's going to know I got holes in my socks. She'll be like, no, do you need
It's just, hey, this Christmas, you're welcome. Anyway, to start out with Dawn to be, and it, like, what was I saying? Not a lot of movies do this, and I love it. Dawn is essentially, we're about even. Like, there's about as many humans as there are zombies, quote unquote, in the world at the same time.
Yeah.
And again, it is the first time in the series that they're ever referenced as zombies. And technically, what I did learn in some research about it was that technically the children that attack him at the little pit stop they make with the helicopter, it's the first time that, like, zombies actually break camp and run. Like, it hadn't really been done before. It's a slow walk. So it's not something that Zack Snyder invented. So, it actually happened with George Romero.
Did you rewatch this one recently?
No, I want to. That's why I've gotten...
Okay.
I need to watch all the different versions of that I have on that black box.
Yeah,
set.
then I don't know if you'll be able to answer my question. So, for shits and giggles, and also because I'd never seen it, and because I figured it would be a way to at least intrigue Veronica more into watching it, because she didn't seem like super amped on it. Not crazy about zombies in general. Doesn't particularly think they're scary. Mm-hmm. But notably, the European cut, which is in the box set you gave me, which I never checked out before, but I was sitting there, I'm like, which one do I want to watch? I was like, I've seen what I think, which is the theatrical version, which he essentially calls the director's cut.
Right.
Which is unrated and everything. I was like, that's the one I have seen a bunch of times.
Right.
It's about 2 hours and 7 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but there's this European cut on here. I start reading the description. I'm like, edited by producer Dario Argento. I was like, I can get into that. And then here's the kicker. Featuring more extended score by Goblin.
Yes.
Who did all the music for Deep Red and Suspiria. Who I like. The Suspiria score is one of my favorite horror scores of all time.
That was the deal to get it made. He had Romero come over to Italy and stay in Italy and bang the script out. And he agreed to help finance it and distribute it if he was allowed to do whatever cuts he wanted to the European release. and he also had like say over the soundtrack. So Romero knew the entire time he was making it, well, I've got this Goblin score I can use, and I've got this other score I could use. So there's why that's like in the theatrical that he releases, there's bits and pieces of everything, because he knew he had an entire basically new soundtrack he could use that was already done for the European cut anyway. But yeah, that was the whole thing. Argento was like, "Yeah, dude, come over here. Let me put it together for Europe and make some more music cuts. But you can do the whole thing, bro. Just do what you want. Make your movie."
Rewatching it as the European cut, as the Argento cut, if you will, completely different experience.
Really,
all of the pathos, the tragedy, like the depth of scenes like you're talking about with the kids, for instance. And I'm like, I wanted to immediately go and pop on the Romero version because I don't remember it being chopped up like this. Because when those kids are killed, it's like, it's crazy and it's heightened. And also, pretty much any time they are taking on zombies, the Goblin score is just blasting, and it is the most like just like crazy shit you've ever heard in some sequences, where the scene where they're changing the cars out and everything, and Peter gets bit. Right. That moment is like the whole build-up and tension of that is completely like, it is the rock and roll version of Dawn of the Dead. Like, it is amped up for maximum, just like, we're just fucking rolling, dude. And like, it breezes over a little. As best as I could remember, the main things that were absent from it were like some of the middle section of more just character building, right? Which is what makes the fucking Romero version so great. But yes, I love Goblin, and this was a blast watching it this way. But it fundamentally does change the tone of the movie, and it's like, if you watch the original Romero, of course, you still get some of that amazing Goblin score. The intro, that whole, like, open, before you get into the SWAT raid sequence in the house, which is just completely, like, gonzo batshit. Perfect example, when they go down and have to slaughter all of those people who are kept up in the room, and they're like, hey, we'd like you guys to go in and deal with it if you can. And they go down there, like, the score that is over that makes it like, oh, this is an action set piece. Right. This is wild. Look at all these effects, as opposed to, oh, fuck. They're like, they just have to straight up go down here and just murder, like, as far as they know, like 30 people that they don't quite understand what this is yet, and blah, blah, blah.
They're squatters. Why aren't they getting me out of there? Yeah. Hey, man, Foley's gonna ape shit.
Yeah, but it's a really interesting study, and I kind of finally appreciated, like, oh, that's why you do a box set like this, because these cuts really do fundamentally change the movie you're watching. So it is kind of like pick and choose what vibe you want to go with. If you don't want the heaviness of Dawn of the Dead,
if you just want a fun action,
if you don't want to think about it too much, and you just want like a blast of adrenaline, essentially vaguely Italian like action horror movie, then you throw on the Argento cut. I mean, I vastly prefer the original Romero, I can tell you that. But it was a fun and then, of course, there's the extended cut as well, which I don't know if I may have watched, like, when you first got it. But,
yeah, I feel like I watched that
I know
first.
I had never done the European cut, and I'm glad I did at this point. Yeah. But probably best that we weren't doing it for a full-on review, because, like, yeah, there probably would have been moments where I'm like, but yeah, and then this thing happened. Because some of them were just, like, little editing choices he made that were very different. One thing I did note, and this is kind of piggybacking off of Texas Chainsaw, rewatched them very close together, by the way, but Texas Chainsaw has like some of the most naturalistic, fantastic performances seen, and I was like, there's so many tiny little moments that I just fucking love, that like continue to be rewarding to go back to, but so lived in, so naturalistic. But Dawn really, really popped for me this time, even in the Argento cut, that those four people, Ken Foree in particular, it's like, in a just world, he would have been up for like best actor for that. Yeah, he's incredible in that movie. I'm particularly thinking about the scene where like Peter is basically like, hey, I know I'm about to turn, but like I'm gonna try not to come back. Like, so don't kill me until you're absolutely sure
it's me. Yeah.
And there's a little moment where like he yells at Kid 40 to like get his attention again to like, hey, agree to this or whatever. And you see Kid 40 just like processing all this, and the way he like gathers that and then responds to him, I can't even like do it justice. But there's so many like tiny, little elegant, perfect moments, and like, but everybody's good in there. Even Flyboy, who I think in earlier watches when I was younger, I was just like, oh, he's kind of the square or whatever, but I guess he kind of steps up towards the end.
Well, see, that's the thing about the whole reason
they're all so dialed in.
The whole reason he got it was because everybody that played that character was trying to be like a cool, brooding action guy, and he was just like chill, calm, like the coolest dude, cool as a cucumber.
That's one of the coolest things about that character is throughout the entire movie. It's especially as Peter starts to like kind of go stir crazy and lose his shit, which leads to him getting bit and all of that.
Right.
Because any other movie, I'm sorry, but your blonde-haired, blue-eyed cop figure would be your traditional hero. Right. And of course, he's the one who loses his shit. Flyboy, who you think would also maybe be, oh, the weirdo who like can't take it, can't hack it,
right?
And he loses it or like puts them in jeopardy. Or the woman loses her shit, and she's fucking fantastic as well.
She told Romero, he said scream, and she said, look, this character would not scream, and she would fight zombies on her own. He never asked her to scream again.
Hell yeah. When she has that moment where she's like, hey, I know y'all know I'm pregnant now, but I didn't want you to find out like this. I don't want you to treat me any different. And basically, I'm going to have a fucking say in what we do here. I'm not going to be your den mother. I'm not going to like cook and clean for you guys. This is the end of the world. Fuck like gender norms, etc. I'm on equal footing with y'all. And yeah, I want to learn to shoot. Sorry I fucked up. But also I love that moment because they're mad at her initially for like, oh, you let one back in here and everything. And Ken Forey's like, and if you're going to do anything, you know, you're going to need to learn to shoot. And then she gets on I forget Flyboy's name, but she's just like, yeah, and next time, don't leave me up here without a gun, because he's the one who took the rifle. The rifle that was left with them, he wanted to go down there and check shit out and kind of be a hero himself. And he's the one who left her unarmed. And she's basically like, fuck you, dude. Like, I could have handled myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any means up here. Left me with a bunch of boxes of food. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Do you know what the original ending was supposed to be?
No, I don't. I don't think I do.
Ken Voorhees was supposed to, get bitten, and she was like in the helicopter and just decided to like step out and let her head get cut off.
Jesus Christ, that would have sucked.
He was like, and he said like they there's back and forth claims because Romero's like, yeah, that was it, but we never shot it, and Savini and them were like, we think we did, we don't know, but
they definitely shot it in the daylight sequence when they stopped at refuel, right? That's the head split.
But they made a bust for her. And when they didn't, Savini says they didn't because he knows that he took that and turned it into one of the African Americans that gets killed in the opener. He made her bust up to look like that. Okay. He knows that's what he used for that one. So he doesn't remember them doing one of her, basically doing the same thing, stepping up and letting the blade get her. But Romero had said like over the time, like, I like these people, and I don't want to, like, we need to have a good, hopeful ending. Like, I don't want to it'd be too bleak and terrible if just everybody died.
Yeah.
You know? So, again, and you have, you know, the destruction of, like, modern breakdown of society, what that means, the consumerism part of it with the mall. Then you have the marauders and the bike gang that came through, which I think were actually, like, real pagans.
Again, continuing to establish the kind of classic trope, which he gets into in Night as well, which is, like, at the end of the day, the biggest threat is not the zombies, it's other people. It's always going to be other people and what the breakdown of society does to human relations, essentially.
And one thing I did really like doing research about it, which I'll have to look for this time, is one of the SWAT officers is the same actor who plays Colonel Rhodes or Lieutenant Rhodes in the one who actually does go batshit crazy, the last soldier to die in Day of the Dead, like the one who takes over. And so people have put it together like, oh yeah, he was fucking, he was a cop, he was a Philly cop or whatever, and then like, he must have was a part-time reservist, so that's why he got put down here in Florida. So that's like, oh, that's the link between the two. So I'm gonna have to look for it this time when I watch it. But allegedly he was in that.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot earlier, but yeah, the guy who plays Peter has like one of my favorite line deliveries, and it's when they're doing the truck scene, and he's kind of like zoned out, and Kid Forey's like, "You good?" And he's like, "We got this, man. We got this by the ass."
Yeah.
You're like, okay, he's definitely dead. You're just like, yeah, famous last words, dude. All right.
Yeah, that's just like saying I got 5 days of retirement. Okay,
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, we got this by the ass. Yeah, great stuff. I love the like day glow blood, and I love that like I was gonna say the sheer physical commitment of like just straight up extras. Okay. Mm-hmm. People who probably were getting paid in lunch.
They got $1, a donut, and a T-shirt. That was it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's one highlight zombie that I spotted this time, and I've noticed him before.
Mm-hmm.
But it is an absolutely incredible physical stunt. Like, where you sit there and watch it, and you're like, is that dude okay? Did they really shoot that dude? Mm-hmm. It's in the climax. The Marauders have come inside. It's pure chaos. There's a cluster of them down by the fountain. Mm-hmm. There's a very large gentleman in a bathing suit, shirt off.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
He gets pegged in the head, and the way that he goes lifeless and slumps into this fountain is so perfect and realistic looking that I rewound it back like 5 times. Where I was like, I was like, you could, that had to be a one take wonder. Like, it's so perfect. Mm-hmm. And then, but throughout the movie, in the chaos of the raid sequence in the opening, you could literally, I was thinking about like what it would be like to be a zombie in this movie before you've had like,
right,
a ton of things to like work and go off of. But I was just like, however he was directing them, the sheer commitment on most people's part, and like people getting like super into just like, I'm fucking dead. Like,
yeah, because his direction was just be dead.
I'm pure instinct.
That was
and the way that people interpret that, it's just like, there's not a lot of people slacking off. Sometimes you'll like you spot an extra, kind of take you out of it or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was amazing that for this like, relatively low budget 70s exploitation movie, that like everybody in these mass crowd scenes, and also I was just like, dude, I hate to keep harping on it. The controlled or like staged chaos of that opening where the newsroom is breaking down. Mm-hmm. Part of it's the sound design, the editing, but every extra is just like, they're generating that feel of like, oh, this is actual chaos. The chaos of that opening raid with all the civilians, and then, oh, hey, don't open that door. Oh shit, there's definitely more zombies in there. Mm-hmm. The husband biting the wife in the neck. That like you're full on just like losing it at that point. He does a great job of making you feel like pure chaos. Mm-hmm. Halloween Kills with an enormous and a much bigger budget, and these huge crowd scenes, and like all the stuff at the hospital. And it felt so just like stagey and forced and like unnatural, and like just like it was tried. Evil dies tonight. I'm sorry. Yeah. But like it wanted to be like chaos, but it just felt like staged chaos. It didn't feel organic. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I was just super impressed by it, but particularly the performances in that one, I think, are like uncommonly good for a horror movie in general, mm-hmm. but particularly of that era. I think they're absolutely fabulous. I wish there was more I know he's over the years he's popped up and stuff, namely one that we'll get to in a little bit.
I was going to ask you if you had seen From Beyond.
I did not. You told me he's in that.
Yeah.
No. I need to.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Jeffrey
Combs.
Combs. I feel like he has to have some kind of like descendants of, like, Lovecraft has to be like a great uncle or something, because he's like in every fucking Lovecraft thing.
Well, that's also because most of them are directed by Stuart. I think it's more he and Stuart Gordon have a thing.
Right.
And Stuart Gordon really likes H.P. Lovecraft, and he likes to cast Jeffrey Combs. And it's because Reanimator's like still one of the biggest cult movies of all time. He'll always, anytime they're going to do one, they obviously are like, oh yeah, what's Jeffrey up to?
Isn't Necronomicon a Lovecraft thing, and he plays Lovecraft in a library?
I have not seen that. I remember the cover of it.
Me too.
I don't know.
Did you watch any of In Search of Darkness too?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Oh, dude, me and Beck spent one Sunday just going down the
So
rabbit hole.
is it all... What's the deal with that one?
It's more focused on
the effects? Is that right?
everything. They do it. They take a break with Nancy Allen. They take a break with the girl who was in...
It's
the
basically
Return
just
to the Living Dead.
elongated segments from like stuff.
They still pick out movies and stuff. Still plenty of talking heads, but then they'll break and be like the woman who was in Return to the Living Dead and these other ones that, like, she was the one that danced naked or whatever. She goes into, like, you know, this thing where she talks about like how to stay fit for like being a scantily clad 80s, you know, final girl. She's like, and then, you know, I did do a workout video for this specific thing, for how to survive a horror movie. And they have the shots of it and stuff. And she's talking about like some big director's wife who's like helping them choreograph it in their backyard pool in Hollywood and shit. And then they go into Nancy Allen talking about her roles and how, like, you know, she got a lot of, you know, being on the set with Jack Nicholson on some film, how that, like, be doing something always meant something to her. So when she was in scene, she was not just like kind of there, just she would always be trying to do and move, because that was like what she had to work with, was her face and her, you know, her body language. It's really good. There's a lot of gems in there. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that one. There's a lot of them that are like, oh, I totally remember that box art, but I've never seen it. I have to go check it out now. Like, do you remember Alone in the Dark?
The video game adaptation?
There's an Alone in the Dark movie in the 80s, and it's literally just a bunch of great old actors who are playing like serial killers that are all in one house that these people stumble upon.
Oh, shit.
I don't know their names of them. I have to look them up.
Don't tell me.
It's great. You should definitely check the documentary.
The description of it made it sound like it was. It sounded like bonus features almost.
No, dude, it's 4 fucking more hours of just the
Okay.
same great shit. You'll love it. I promise. You should definitely just put it on.
Well, I was gonna do Near Dark, but now I kind of want to start that.
Yeah.
Okay, I will definitely check that out. So we've done
The 80s and the 70s.
70s.
You want to do 90s and 2000s or 2000s and 90s?
We'll do 90s, 2000s.
All right.
What was your pick for the 90s? Remind everyone.
Candyman.
And we can't.
Candyman.
We did a fairly
We did a lengthy thing on the remake.
right
Sequel-ish thing.
and I feel like a lot of that, from my perspective, was framed around. I really love the original.
The original is great.
And
I appreciate the original. Yes. Having watched the remake first, or the sequel, re-sequel, whatever you want to call it, first, watching the original...
So you had never seen it?
No.
Up to this point?
What I saw was on Boogeyman. Was literally just that scene. So, like, watching it and being like, this totally rates, like... I pointed out to Bex, I was like, this baby here at the end? I was like, yeah. She's like, did you catch this? She goes, yeah. I was like, you know that's... She's like, yeah, no, I got it. I was like, okay, as long as you know that that's homeboy from the new one, we're good. You know? And then just the thing that I love that it had that the new one didn't, but was kind of getting there, was the, oh, you don't believe me, Helen? Well, I'm going to make sure that you know who I am. I'm going to frame you for everybody's murder.
Yeah.
And probably one of the, like, most, like, satisfying enders where, you know, what happens to Helen happened, she's gone. But the very end where
John Connor's foster father.
Yeah, Todd. Shitty fucking Todd, the foster father, who
Not
plays
my
a professor.
dad,
Todd.
Excuse me, she's not my mother, Todd.
I just love that Jeanette Goldstein, again, here we go. She's like,
Your foster parents are dead.
Yeah. What's the dog's name? Max. Hey, Janelle. What's wrong with Woofy? Woofy's fine, honey.
Like,
Your
this
foster parents
fucking robot
is smart as
fuck,
shit.
dude.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, fucking somehow he's a professor, whatever. And yeah, he gets his comeuppance at the very end, which is just brutal. And of course it's gonna totally blame the fucking student chick that, he was fucking on the side.
Yeah.
So, love Virginia Madsen. I love Tony Todd. I wish he was in everything.
Again, that was my biggest issue with the new one.
But I mean, it definitely was him at the end. So I mean, if he wants, I mean, I'll tell you this, Noah. I didn't see Farewell to the Flesh, but I did watch Day of the Dead, like Candyman 3, Day of the Dead.
Okay.
So it's definitely like what it's supposed to be, as like a 90s, straight to DVD sequel with some big titty blonde that we know was a playmate and,
right.
Definitely is going to get naked halfway through it
for
some
you're
amount of
like,
time.
Is this a Skinamax
Right.
softcore movie,
Right.
or is this Candyman 3?
Right.
I'm not quite sure.
And even if it is Cinemax softcore, can we get something going on with the hook and the naked chick at the same time, please?
Can we incorporate
That's what we're
these
here
things?
for. Yes.
This is doing something for somebody.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the framing of the murder, when you get the centerpiece, like, there's been a dog. It's been decapitated.
Yes. Oh my
There's
God,
this
dude.
bathroom. The baby is missing.
Yes.
Like, all of that the first time around, you're just like, oh, fuck. And it is, I mean, that movie does not
And my thing
hold
is like,
back.
why the fuck did you pick up the weapon?
Right. Yes.
Like, again, I get that, like, if you get up and there's blood and you see a weapon, you might think, I need to arm myself because whoever's in here is in here and they're going to, they could come at me. But, like, in my true crime brain, I'm like, don't fucking touch nothing. Make sure your hair follicles are gone. If you can get out the front door without opening it with your hands, don't. Get your wrists going. Get a napkin and open. Get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And that's in the 90s. Nowadays, like, good God, they're going to know you did it regardless. Because to me, that's the biggest fear overall. Like, that's my biggest fear on the planet.
Is being framed for murder.
No, being accused, yes, framed for murder. But, like, there being so much evidence that looks like I did it, that some piece of shit lawyer can convince 12 people to say, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Without a fucking shred of proof. No physical evidence. Circumstantial. Not like, well, we did find your hair there. Or we did find your fingerprints. Okay, compelling. But fingerprints can't tell you you don't know how long they've been there. I could have been in that apartment 20 years ago. You never know. Hair follicle, same thing. DNA, different story. But that is my biggest fear, is like, and that it speaks to the same thing that I just talked about with, like, the girl coming home realizing, oh, your uncle is wearing your dad as a skin suit. The just utter, like, fuck, man. Like, there just does not get any better. There was a glimmer of hope that everything might be okay. The only difference is in this one, it's like, just don't fucking say this guy's name, man.
Yeah.
That's what he wants you to do because he wants you to remember. But you can forget about it. You can discredit him all day long. As long as you don't fucking say his name, he doesn't care. Yeah. Like, that's the brilliance of it. And just the utter, like, the idea that, one, she gets to be, like, they let her out. Like, okay, well, maybe you didn't do it. Maybe you're wielding a knife, the dog. And then her best friend bites it the same way. And it's, like, utterly hopeless. Because how the fuck can you... That, to me, has got to be, like, one, physically, one of the most, like... I can't imagine these people who, like, we all know, have spent years in a system that has just beat them down. And, like, they finally get out and it's like, hey, we're sorry, man. It's crazy that just somebody saying you did it and not actually physically proving you did. Sorry we took 20 years of your life. No, we don't really have that much money for you. Oh, you want millions? We can give you, like, $500 a day for every day. It's like not even $100,000 for fucking years taken from someone. And that's the weird thing I've always talked about going back into horror is like, end of the day, say that you live in Haddonfield in Halloween Kills and you live, fucking the mortgage company still wants their fucking payment. If you're renting from somebody, they still want their rent on, November 1st. Well, Michael Myers killed all these people in this. Tough shit, dude. You can pay your rent. You're going to get kicked out in 30 days. What the fuck are you going to do? It's like everybody in that hospital has to get up and go and work the next day.
You know why?
Because evil dies tonight.
No, because Halloween ends.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If evil dies tonight, they would really just go and all that would just go and they take down like the credit card companies or the student loan people. That's what would really happen.
Have you seen one of the recent memes where it's
Is it the one Patrick sent?
What's that?
The one Patrick sent?
Oh, I may not have seen it, but it's AMH from 16 Candles, and it's like, I need you, I need you to let me borrow your baseball bat because evil dies. It's the I need to let you borrow your underwear.
Yeah.
From 16 Candles, but it's like, I need you to let me borrow your baseball bat because evil dies tonight.
Patrick sent one that was like, it was Laurie Strode's like, wait, you've never died? And it was Nev Campbell being like,
She's
nope,
like,
never.
Nope.
Never.
Yep,
Yeah.
I love that.
Because
speaking of which,
that Scream trailer, bro.
So, I'm excited because I'm excited.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, trailer was fine. The trailer was not like a, what shall I compare
Season
it to?
2 of Stranger Things trailer?
Sure.
Tell me that's not the best fucking trailer. That Thriller intro, fucking Steve at the party, fucking Billy with the shirt off going crazy at the party. You're like, what are we doing? This ain't season 1. We're amping this motherfucker up. Thriller's playing. These kids are in Ghostbusters outfits. Tell me that's not the best fucking trailer for something in a long time. Or Ghostbusters. You know what, dude? Me and Bex talked about this. We both got, every time we watch that Ghostbuster trailer, we get like really teared up, like really emotional. Like, this is amazing. Like, we can't imagine. We're just stoked.
Okay.
Mom said it too. So,
All right. Mm-hmm. I hope it's decent.
It doesn't matter to me. It'll just, the nostalgia factor and like.
Well, there you go.
What?
No, it's
Do I know what?
The buzz on it is that it's utter trash, that it is like horrible, but specifically for the reasons that you're saying that you're probably going to enjoy it, and then the current, part of the discourse, and I pretty much tried to fucking stay out of it when we had to have all this controversy the last time they made a Ghostbusters movie. But with this one, I guess here's my thing, dude. And a lot of people brought this up. This is not a new thought or anything. When we watched Ghostbusters when we were kids, did you want to be a Ghostbuster yourself? Or did you want to be Peter Venkman? Egon Spangler? Like,
I wanted to be Zedmore.
When you wanted to be Winston Zedmore. Okay. But
actually, no, I wanted Ray Stantz because I wanted a ghost blowjob. That's why.
Do you see what I'm saying though?
Right.
We were a bunch of kids watching a movie made by a bunch of 30-year-olds. It's just a bunch of comedy dudes, a bunch of like improv comedy dudes. And I've said this many times before. If you go back and watch the original Ghostbusters, it is one of the weirdest fucking movies to become.
It's like Dan Aykroyd.
A phenomenon. Like, it is a fundamentally very strange film.
Right.
In the way that it's written, in the way that it's performed. And the only thing that like kind of saves it by the skin of its teeth and like is the magic of it is having the Bill Murray character there to undercut everything, and also have the brilliant line deliveries of Harold Ramis and the like whole other next level brilliance of Rick Moranis in that movie. Like, those are the things. It's just all this magic stew that just happened to coalesce together.
Right.
Okay. So, what is this need now with Afterlife to like pass it on to the kids? And like, I get that it's like it's Egon's kids and like Harold Ramis has passed on, and like, okay, Ivan Reitman's not directing it, Jason Reitman is, so we're trying to do like a family thing and like all this shit, but like, but what the fuck does that have to do with Ghostbusters? What does it have to do with the original kernel of like what made that work? Which is part of why I had such an issue with people flipping out over the female Ghostbusters, because I was like, okay, it's ladies now. Like, who the fuck cares? Whatever. And what I kind of appreciated about that movie, which I don't think is like flawless or like incredible or anything, but I enjoyed well enough when I saw it in the theater, thought I had some good laughs in it, was it was not trying to like it was not trying to like hit all of the beats of the original.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a Ghostbusters movie.
Right.
Here's our team. Here's our, and like regardless of what you thought of the villain or the setup or any of that, like honestly, who gives a shit? I would say it's on the same level as Vigo the Carpathian in the second one, which I fucking love. But like, it's inconsequential. It's about the interplay and the interaction or whatever. But now making it essentially Stranger Things with Ghostbusters in it, and like it's kid centric, it's nostalgia based for the adult, I guess, of our generation now, and people who also grew up on it. But like, I just feel like it's so far removed now. It feels like a movie that is about the nostalgia for Ghostbusters, not just like what is good or what was enjoyable or what made the original Ghostbusters. I get none of that from the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Personally.
Yeah, but the thing that you're talking about... I
say that loving Paul Rudd,
mm-hmm.
loving Carrie Coon, and when fucking Dan Aykroyd picks up the phone at the end of that trailer, like, I'm gonna see it.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for you guys, but I am not like... I did not get emotional watching that trailer, not one bit, because to me it just like, it's not gonna feel like Ghostbusters. It's not. They're never gonna make a movie like the sheer spectacle of this one. Some of the action set pieces you see in the trailer, like the original builds to and has, again, insane effects for the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not like what makes the movie. Is the fucking sheer weirdness and like the magic chemistry of those fucking four guys. Like, that's what it is.
So you're saying we don't have those four guys anymore, just put it to bed? Or just make another one without anything relative, just call it Ghostbusters, like the female one that nobody liked? Nobody liked it. I've never seen it. I don't think it's a good... I'm the same way. It's like, who gives a shit? They're ladies. If they all have a good chemistry, then it'll work. My thing with that is like, I don't know. I've never seen it. I'm not going to talk about it. If it has a chemistry,
it's fun. It's good.
Is it everybody from Bridesmaids all over again?
Not everybody, but
most of them.
It's Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig.
That's it. Nobody else from Bridesmaids is in it besides them.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay. Like, and again, females don't have to, like, if they all work and they all gel and they have comedic timing with each other and it's good, okay, great. It's good. It's these core people. They happen to be wearing Ghostbuster stuff and doing Ghostbuster shit, and that's it. Did that movie relate anything to the old one? Was there any Dan Aykroyd, any Ernie Hudson, any... Yeah. They were all in it.
Bill Murray was in it. I believe Aykroyd makes a cameo. Obviously, the late, great Harold Ramis was not able to.
Right.
And I feel like there was an Ernie Hudson moment, but I honestly can't remember.
And what does Bill Murray do?
That was the thing with this one. They were all playing different characters. They weren't playing... That's the other thing I liked about it, weirdly, was like, they didn't try and shoehorn, okay, well, now we got to get the old Ghostbusters back together.
So Bill Murray wasn't Pete Bateman. He was just some other dude. Okay.
Yeah, they were all just random cameos. They just happened to be in the movie, which I kind of liked.
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't know. To me, all it feels like is like, we need, if we want to keep this intellectual property alive and going. We need kids to like it again, and we can't necessarily rely on just like the strength of the original movies and their parents introducing them to it.
Right.
So we've got to throw kids into a movie that when they added Oscar the Baby to the second one, the internet version of the early 90s or whatever, but the fandom around it, just from what I've heard contextually in reviews at the time, people fucking hated the idea that there was all of a sudden, they're like, what's a baby doing in the midst of this? And it's not even Venkman's kid with her. It's just like, what? Like, that pissed people off at the time. And the idea now that it's going to be like so...
Like, you have to do that. Why not? Why, you just assume that she's going to have a baby with him? Fucking Sigourney Weaver's a strong, independent female doing her thing in New York. Of course she's not going to just fuck Venkman and have a child. She's going to do it to somebody else.
Have a baby at all, other than they need the baby to be at stake, and like that is kind of the stakes of that movie.
Who else is Vigo going to come back as, Noah?
Okay.
Lawyered.
Tabled.
No, that's my point, dude. Like, I
Judge
get it.
and jury.
I am the law. Anyway, that's my point. Is like the thing, and that's, and I don't. I will. It's the same
How did
reason.
We get into a
I don't.
Ghostbusters debate.
That was all you,
midst of
brother.
our
I just said that I enjoyed the trailer. I get a little emotional, like just kind of like really excited. The nostalgia is injected straight into the main vein, and I'm just like, that's nice, because you know what? I love Ghostbusters, and I love Ghostbusters 2. They're some of my favorite movies to watch.
So fucking rewatch them.
And
like,
I
why
do.
You want to huff the fumes of it?
I don't.
In some bullshit recreation.
If I wanted to huff the fumes, I would have seen the ones with the females. It's just nice to see.
would have seen the ones with
I don't
the
work with the
females.
males because I used to be one.
How much for your women?
How much for your women? If it's not about that and those movies, Noah. It's about watching that trailer reminds me of watching it watching the second one in the playroom with you in Japan. That's what I think about when I see that trailer. It's not so much, oh my God, Ghostbusters is a thing. It's that feeling of nostalgia. It's that feeling that when you listen to something that like I just listened to something today about, can you enjoy an artist after they fucked up and done wrong? And the general consensus is you appreciate the art for what it is, not the artist making it. It's the same reason why 3 times this month already, Thriller has popped up on my music, and I don't turn it off, and I listen to it. I don't give a shit about the guy who made it. I remember the feeling I get when I first listened to it with you, and you and I first watched the movie on those cassette tapes we had. It's not always about the new thing that's coming out and what it does. It's about that feeling it invokes, so that for just a little bit of time, just that little bit of time when that trailer was going, like, it didn't matter what else was going on. I was like, yeah, man, that's whether it makes money or not, that's cute. It looks good. And Mom's like, well, we should come back at Thanksgiving and watch it. I don't even know if I'll go see it, but I like what I see in the trailer. It invokes this nostalgic image of a time where I didn't have to worry about rent or bills or growing up. And it's nice to live there for a little bit, even if it's 2 hours in a movie that people think shouldn't be made. It's kind of nice to live there for a little bit. Watching Halloween Kills with you and Mom, that was like putting on Halloween 4 on a Sunday afternoon when all I had the next day was fucking high school coming up. It's all that's why we consume it. The thing we're looking at now might not be the best, but what we know it can be and what it invokes and what it lets us do, it's the closest thing to like, jacking into the Matrix and just not caring about anything else. It's like, that's what it's all about. That's why we go back to horror. I go back to horror all the time. I've seen them a million times. They don't remind me. I don't think about them as like socially conscious. I don't think about, the kills. It brings up this time in my life where nothing was really that big at stake. Everything was good. It was just a random ass Sunday or Saturday night or Sunday afternoon where I just had this movie playing and it was all good. And for the little bit of times when I see them, especially around this time of year, it just kicks up the nostalgia, and it reminds me that, you know what? You may not feel like everything's dope right now, everything's great, everything's rolling for you, all your stressors or whatever, but you were okay, and everything was fun and good at one time. Remember that you can have that. So when you get up the next day and you feel like, oh, fuck, man, remember that you used to be able to do that and you can keep on rolling. That got really fucking deep. Let's talk about your pick from the 90s.
Our conversation about nostalgia to be continued after you watch Last Night in Soho at the end of this month.
Yeah,
a
definitely.
horror movie about nostalgia. So
yeah,
I look forward to that. I also would encourage you to watch the 21st or the 20th. I need to look it up for you. Season of South Park. You know what a member berry is?
Yeah, I remember.
Did you watch that
Remember
season?
Star Wars? Yes, no. Of course I watched Star Wars. I know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying, like, I hear everything you're saying, but, like, you don't feel like it's a little cynical that, like, that's all that, like, a lot of popular entertainment is anymore? And we're not generating anything for people to have nostalgia about years from now for it. Now, granted, I don't know that we're all going to be, not to get really deep, but I don't know that we're all going to fucking be here like 5 years from now.
Right.
Much less a decade. But, like, don't you think this at the end, at a certain point, isn't this kind of the nadir of society and culture if all we're doing is recycling and celebrating the same shit we've been celebrating and recycling for the last decade? Like, Ghostbusters, we're talking about a movie that is almost 40 fucking years old.
Mm-hmm.
And Halloween, I mean, I'm not saying, oh, I never want another Halloween movie. I'm not even saying that. But it just, the fact that, like, you had such a profound response, and I get where you're coming from, but that also scares the shit out of me.
Why?
Because there's millions of other people that probably feel the exact same way you do. And I'm like, but don't you want something, like, I don't know, I feel like I get more jazz when I see something where I'm like, holy fuck, that's a new thing that hit me the same way, or like the same caliber of a reaction that I had to something. Like, I will get nostalgic in that way, I guess I would say. I'm looking or chasing something.
You
that's
want the
going
next
to
hit,
make
dude.
me,
I get it.
That's
You
going
want
to make me feel that way.
Exactly.
But it doesn't have to be me being spoon-fed that same thing or a watered-down version of it again. I chase that feeling in general, right. I would say.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's not that I don't chase that either. It's that I can appreciate it when I find it where I find it. Okay? Like watching The Endless and Spring and all the Woodward and Bernstein.
Just fucking keep
Moorhead
it going,
and George, whatever. Yeah.
Moorhead
and Bernstein.
George?
Whatever. I don't know their names. Watching those two. Like, whenever I watched The Endless and I was like, oh, fuck, they're walking right back into the set of Resolution. It had the same feel as if, like, oh shit, like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that Marty was here the whole time? When we saw it, was the same feeling, but it was something new, and it's these two. So when I went and watched Synchronic, I was fucking jazzed as shit because I know what these guys have done, and this is their shot to make it big. It's the same thing that, like, the same reason why I've told you many times, fuck you for making me watch Green Room. Because it's visceral and it sticks with me. Same thing with Dragged Across Concrete and all these other things. It's there, and I want them. But I'm just saying I use you as the filter for me to find them. Because it's a lot easier for me to just watch the Ghostbusters trailer. Because if I wait for you to tell me, hey, man, you know Night Moves? Hey, man, you know The Long Good Friday? Those shit's really good. Okay, and then I'm good. It's like, holy fuck, I can't believe I never saw this. And it brings up every nostalgia time of like, man, remember when I first watched this thing? What I would give to be able to watch something for the first time ever again. That's why I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to wind up with some form of dementia, which would not bother me whatsoever. Because if I get to experience something new like that again, be great. I just hope I remember my children's names. Anyway.
Beautifully said. That was a good chat. Good chat.
Yeah.
It was worth talking. It was worth having the Ghostbusters debate to
Yes.
get us to that point. Ghostbusters Afterlife coming soon to
Thanksgiving,
theater near
guys.
you.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we'll
theater
see.
To you.
We'll see how it is.
Mm-hmm.
I like Paul Rudd.
So all right. So all right. Let's take Finn Wolfhard
Star
out
of Halloween 6, Paul Rudd. Bring it back to horror.
The only star. Well, no, technically Donald Pleasance is there. So
Also, I'm sorry.
what?
I gotta meet Finn Wolfhard's agent.
Yes,
Legit.
you do.
I mean, you got all these kids. They should all be superstars, theoretically, right? It's the fucking one of the biggest shows. Well, now Squid Game is. You watch Squid Game, bro?
No, I need to.
I thought for sure you would have crushed it already.
Did you watch the Train to Busan sequel, Peninsula?
I was looking around as if like somebody's gonna tell on me. I still haven't seen Train to Busan. I'm saving it as a present for myself for this year. Dude.
You better watch it and then watch Peninsula right after.
Are they both on Shudder?
Yeah.
Okay.
You watch VHS 94?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Me too. It was not as good as the first one.
Well, let's pause for a second.
Okay.
We'll take a little
We're in the 90s. Let's do it.
Sideways
94.
review again because we couldn't do.
Yeah.
Can't do a full-on Kills review yet, even though we keep talking about it somehow. I didn't see Viral. Did you see VHS Viral?
Yes.
Okay. You'd say that's the bottom of the barrel?
I would, honestly, yeah.
Okay, here's my thing. I skipped Viral. It had been a bit... Excuse me. Been a bit since they made one of these.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it was on Shudder, I was intrigued. And then I saw one of my boys, Timo Chanjanto. Tanjanto. I'm probably butchering it. I'm terribly sorry. Timo had kind of the centerpiece of this one. And if you'll recall, he had the centerpiece of VHS 2, which is the whole cult demon segment. It's the best part of the second one. It's arguably the best.
Does he have the robot one? Or is it the...
Yes.
Okay.
In this one.
That's why I kind of felt like they're vaguely similar in the way they're shot and in the way they feel. So, that makes sense.
And they're some of the same actors. But
yeah.
The cult one from VHS 2, I think, is arguably the best segment of any of them. I would put it up there with probably... The first one has a lot of strong ones, because the Succubus is pretty incredible. The very first one.
Yeah.
First
sketch
the Night Out,
or
first... Yeah.
My favorite is still the they go into the house to save her, but it's you fucked up.
The radio silence one at the end.
You fucked up.
Those guys are directing the new Scream, by the way.
Hell yeah.
The guys who did that segment.
Then that's dope.
That one's super strong as well. I think the first one overall is pound for pound the most consistent, even though there's a few wonky ones in there. There's the Friday the 13th-esque
which you can't see him.
Camcorder killer guy. Yeah. Not crazy about that one. And a couple others. But anyways. But 2 has 2 great set pieces in it, which is really all you need. If you got 2 decent ones and a bunch of 4 or 5, I think your batting average is fine. Mm-hmm. I thought consistency
where Viral didn't have really anything to talk about.
Right.
To me.
Okay.
Just didn't feel it. I just wasn't feeling it. Maybe there's a hidden gem I didn't pay attention to. But.
In the case of 94 here, I would argue, and I need to go back and look at how 1 and 2 are paced and the order and everything. But I thought it had the most consistency across the board, kind of base level of quality. I hated the wraparound segment, but that's kind of par for the course in all of the VHS movies. Is the wraparound segment kind of sucks.
I didn't mind the first one of them breaking into the house.
Yeah, and you kind of want to see all those guys die because they suck. The second one... And the first one, doesn't the first one have the body is moving around, you see somebody watch?
It keeps moving, yeah.
Yes. But I thought this was the framing device was atrocious.
Yes.
But atrociously acted in a way that I thought was pretty intentional at the same time.
Right.
It was trying to
be. They
knew
they were making a VHS.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was on board with it for the first little bit. The ultimate ending reveal, I was this is too much. But the first segment, the Rat Man.
Oh God!
I thought was extremely effective.
Yes,
really well shot. Worked for me. I love all the little interstitial ads.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, the funeral home. Yeah.
Yeah, play.
I liked it a lot.
It was super creepy.
I thought it had a good setup and then ultimately like a pretty solid effect for the little bit that you saw it in. That one was done by Simon Barrett, if I'm not mistaken. Wingard's buddy who he did You're Next. And Horrible Way to Die With. And then the Timo centerpiece with the kind of like first person shootery. I mean, it was less horror, but it was just a fun.
It's more. Those are more like look what I can do with this medium of like a first person and like what I can get away with.
And then the closer was the what was it, like the white nationalists?
Yes, I loved it. That was
that fucked with a vampire.
The vampire. Yes. Don't get that blood on you.
Yeah.
No, God, that was so good.
Yeah, no, that was very satisfying. So no, I thought all of the segments were super enjoyable, all the interstitial ads, and I just thought the wraparound was kind of whatever. Yeah. But I had fun with it. It was a nice surprise, and yeah, I know I did get that itch where I was like, oh. Well, maybe I should go check out Viral, and then I immediately was met with like, nah, you really don't need to. You can skip that one.
Like this saves the entire like thing for me recommending it to people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when it came, I was like, oh fuck, there's a new VHS, and I was like, Bex, did I make you watch any of this? She goes, I don't know, and I was like, do you want to watch this? And she's like, I was like, yeah, I don't know if you can handle like this stuff right now. So I think that's why we just started watching. I think we just did that's how we started doing Midnight Mass.
And have you finished?
Oh, we
already texted about this. Do you want to do a little spoiler chat for Midnight Mass?
We can, yeah. Because I don't really have a ton to say about like your pick of the 90s or...
Oh, Cape Fear was my 90s pick.
We already did talk about that.
I've done plenty of Cape Fear rants.
Yeah.
Over the years.
So let's do a little Midnight Mass.
There's only arguably two... I'll just talk real quick. There's only arguably two Scorsese horror films. I know most people consider Cape Fear more of a thriller, or whatever the hell you want to call it. The movie just operates at an 11. It's just one of the most heightened things ever. I fucking love every second of it. And it's a good one to throw into the mix to me in ARKTOBER, where it's like, it's a dude. He's not wearing a mask. He's just a terrifying individual. And the setup is like... unbearable, and it's tense as fuck, and it is what it is, and it sticks with you, and it's incredibly rewatchable. That's the other thing, is like, but also, you don't have to use it in October because it works any time of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just threw it in there because I don't think we've ever properly talked about a Scorsese movie on this show. So Shutter Island is the other one, the more conventional horror pick if you wanted to, which is also still, people are like, it's more of a thriller. I don't like this distinction. I don't like the thriller horror distinction. Right. Most of the time. Sometimes it's appropriate. Okay. But yeah. So we're going to slide over. Spoilers. We're 2 hours deep.
Yeah. Fuck it. Let's do it.
Whatever. We're going to talk a little bit about Midnight Mass. Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass. I just want to get your general thoughts on like the progression of the show. Like, did it take a bit to get its hooks in you, or were the hooks like firmly in, and then they just kind of twisted as you got the reveals of like, here's what's going on? Did you call it early on?
Hell no.
Did you have any inklings of like?
No idea.
Okay, well, for those who have not watched, and again, stop listening. Like, don't fucking I
listen.
would not want to take away the pleasure of this show for anybody. So we're
and
not even.
It's not much. It was 8 episodes.
It's 7 episodes.
7 episodes.
It's on Netflix.
I've recommended it to plenty of people.
It's incredible. We both highly recommend it. It's Mike Flanagan, director of Dr. Sleep and The Haunting of Hill House, many other good things. I have to sneeze.
Whoa. Talk about a hot mic, Robert Durst. Who is finally, they're starting his trial soon, so thank God.
Oh, sorry. Oh, jeez. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh. Okay.
It looks like you feel better.
I think there might be another one coming on. We'll see. We'll see how far we can get.
Tell you, man, these cats, they do it to you.
Oh, I guess so. Okay. Midnight Mass. Sorry, you want to talk for a minute?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, it's weirdly... I was going to try and, like, throw in, like, the third day in here with just, like, these, like, isolated Wicker Man, like, island things. But
the initial
I love it.
That's
that's how it feels.
That's what I was expecting.
Right.
Yes.
And that's exactly where I was going. And then you throw me a curveball with like the religious stuff, and I'm like, okay. And I was thinking like, okay, early on I was like, okay, this guy, he's not really a priest. Like there's some angle here. So when they
killed the priest,
yeah, exactly. He's not. Yeah.
Well,
so then when that episode happens where he's talking, and every time the light comes in, you're like jarred by something. I'm like, what the fuck? And he explains to you that essentially he is their priest, just reborn and younger.
well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
This is not even me trying to like pat myself on the back or anything.
Uh-huh.
This was literally just daydream type shit.
Uh-huh.
And it's, trained movie, TV watch
Right.
or whatever. They had harped on, in the first episode, they harped so much on the fact that the Monsignor was very old.
Yes.
Very, decrepit and like not in great health. And they sent him on this mission trip, etc. They all like raised funds for him. And just the amount they harped on his age.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When dude shows up, Father Paul, and I don't even know that we've seen him, but we've seen some people's reaction to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we've seen his like face fall on. But I kept thinking, I was like, oh, all these people are flipping out because it's young version. Like, did he come back as a younger version of himself?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, he presents as like, my name's Father Paul. Your Monsignor fell ill. I'm filling in for the time being. And then I'm like, oh, okay. They're just reacting because they expected to see their priest and they didn't see their priest. So I get off that trail and I start thinking like you do. I'm like, maybe he killed that priest to take over, but like to what ends? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So when it circles back around to, oh yeah, it is him. He is the priest, and he's been restored to his youth by an angel. And what, dude, the end of episode 3, the extended like monologue, you've seen him, in the confession booth the whole episode, cutting back and forth to it. But him telling the story of like finding the creature in the cave, which by the way, for a show that I felt like never really tried to do the jump scare thing, which I always appreciate. Flanagan like fluctuates between like he can do a good jump scare, but he's more about like burying shit in the frame, etc. And he didn't even do much of that in this. Like the horror, I think some people, unfortunately, if they were in the like spooky mood or whatever, they start this up, maybe feel like it doesn't deliver and tap out.
The only real
it.
thing is the dead girl that he sees in prison. That's the only like shocking jump out at you.
Yes,
like,
but even that
and it's not
follows
that big. Yeah,
follows the Flanagan school of thought to me, which is like he very rarely just like flashes something in front of you or tries to use that as the shock. It's more he makes you sit with things,
right?
And like just you're in the same headspace as the Zach Gilford character. Anytime he lays down, this is what he fucking sees. So you're gonna have to sit with it for a bit too,
right?
And Hill House did a great job with that, where it's like there's just ghosts like buried in the background throughout that entire show. Some of them you see, some of them you don't, like depending on how good your TV is essentially,
right?
And how eagle-eyed a viewer you are. And that like, but again, that's different than like here's the jump scare with this thing. That's the just slow brooding, like, the dread of like what's going on in the background, what's going to happen there. There's a presence watching me, or whatever. But anyways, for a show that never fully like leans into horror, like
no tropes
set
whatsoever
pieces,
to me.
That reveal though in the cave of the angel was like when you just see the eyes in the darkness. One of the spookiest things I've seen in a while. But yeah, the whole, I mean, again, we're not pussyfooting around it because we assume you've seen the show by this point if you're continuing to listen. The reveal that he's saying angel the whole time, and I love that, like, as soon as you see it, you're like, I don't think that's an angel, bro.
No,
like,
bro.
Father Paul, I don't think that's an angel.
That's definitely like a fucking, it reminded me of like a Fright Night 2011 remake like lives in the desert because it's cool. It's a cooler climate to live in the like walls of a desert cave type thing, and will scurge around for food.
Yeah.
How the hell you even got there blows my mind. And then the idea that it's like, oh, well, this is an angel. I'm going to take this back to my flock, and we're all going to be reborn. Okay, cool, bro. I'm into it. Let's see what happens.
And you're like,
And
I'm
the
pretty sure
soul-
that's a demon. And you're not like, you haven't even fully started to. You're like, because they never say the word.
No.
They never say fucking vampire.
No, they
but
don't.
It's a fucking vampire.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, well, this is like Salem's Lot on crack, essentially, but like with this whole like extra religious bent to it.
See,
and
and
it
that's-
immediately is just like, this is the best Stephen King that Stephen King had nothing to do with.
Yes.
Like, it's everything we love about a great Stephen King story. An ensemble of characters, a small town, buried secrets, religious elements, religious iconography, deep exploration of humanity and warring opinions on things, dividing lines being drawn in a community, all of this shit. And you just like, Mike Flanagan, who has now done 4 or 5, so he did Gerald's Game, he did Doctor Sleep. Why do I feel like there's another King one in there that I'm not thinking of?
What's the one? No, yeah, because Gerald's Game has.
Maybe it is just those two.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But to me, he is weirdly like taken the mantle.
He's like a disciple kind of thing.
He's
if you wanna
definitely a
get
King
religious.
disciple who I think at this point is like kind of outdone him. Like, I'm like, if the script for this was just adapted into book form, this would be a bestseller. Like, absolutely. This is great shit. So yeah, again, and that whole reveal and like the turn towards the horror elements in general is so secondary. But while we are discussing genre, this is the best fucking vampire story
Yeah,
in a long time.
long
man.
fucking time.
And just so
And to
and
have
it's all in the way
like,
that it presents
but
itself.
it sidesteps every trope ever in any genre, horror, action, thriller, whatever. Because like, when you see the Zach Gilmore character get turned,
Guilford,
when you see him get turned,
Matt
I'm like,
Saracen.
yeah, Matt Saracen. When he gets turned, I'm like, oh great. So it's like,
Dude, okay, that episode 4.
right,
They kill off Joe midway through the episode.
right.
Joe Cawley, played by the fantastic Richard Longstreet. I'll give it a thumbs up. One of my favorite elements of Halloween Kills, actually. Lonnie Elam.
Yeah.
Love that guy. He's also in Doctor Sleep, also
Yeah.
in Hill House, lots of other things. When they killed Joe, I was furious. But it caught me off guard. And it worked because I was not expecting it in the middle of an episode.
Right.
I was not expecting it in episode 4.
Right.
And I was not expecting it to go down the way it did. And I was very upset because to that point, he was one of my 2 favorite characters. My other favorite character was the lead, played by Zach Gilford, who's dealing with his own guilt and trying to readjust to this community, trying to figure out what his life is like after he's gotten out of prison after 4 years for drunk driving and manslaughter. And then oh my god, dude, just great storytelling, just the kind of shit that, it absolutely devastated me. You have the beautiful setup. He's had this blossoming, like, reconnection and relationship with, I'm sorry, the character's name escapes me, but the teacher, Miss Green.
Yeah.
Yes. And essentially they've had, like, a great dialogue with each other.
They spent the night together. He's going to come back.
They spent the night together, but wake up as presumably fully clothed. The implication...
They're rekindling what they had before he
But the
left.
implication is you come back tonight because, like, you're definitely staying the night and, like, we're definitely getting it on. That's
Right.
the implication is come back later tonight. And then he goes to his AA meeting. Joe's not there. And Father Paul lies to him to cover up And I love the setup of how we know that he's lying
Right.
in the moment, and one of the best performance moments from Zach Gilford in the show, of playing that reaction and not revealing that he knows that whole thing.
Right.
Great stuff. So we're getting towards the end of the episode, and he's had the thing with his mom where it's like, hey, don't trust him. He lied to me. Like, something just feels off about this. Don't just.
But you've also had what we should point out is that, like, one of my favorite things is how low key all the people in the town are changing for the better because of the sacrament. Mm-hmm. Mom's not wearing her glasses anymore. Dad's got, a little pep in his step.
Some people are flat out de-aging.
Right.
Elderly women
it's all
are recovering from dementia.
Because it's all being de-aging. Like given, through the sacrament of confession. Or not confession, of Mass.
Yes.
The body and blood of Christ. So you have that going on, and he's like, yeah, no, don't trust this dude. I don't, he lied to me, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And he basically has that thing. He's at her doorstep.
It's like he's right fucking there, dude.
Right.
And he just can't let it go because he's like, that shit just didn't feel right.
Right.
Meanwhile, Father Paul and his angel...
The angels finally arrived. It took him a while.
Yeah, he's been flying around just checking shit out. Presumably,
eating all the cats on the island.
Yeah. Oh, God. I started this without Veronica because I knew there was cat shit, and I was the cat. I had to make sure that it was watchable.
Uh-huh.
Ultimately, she only saw bits and pieces of the show, but she enjoyed it.
Well, how do you think I feel when the dog dying?
Oh, dude, when they killed Joe's dog.
Yeah.
That fucking woman, dude. We'll get to her in a minute.
Yes.
We will fucking get to her in a second. Okay. But yeah. Angel has showed back up, is transferring the blood and everything. And the way they're cross-cutting between these two things, like they're in the rec center and he's now walking there, and you're just like, oh, but obviously they'll do the classic thing where it's like, we think they're going to be found out. But at the last second, when he comes through this door, it'll just be Father Paul, and he'll cover it up, and we'll move along to the next episode. But we'll know, maybe we'll see the dude lurking in the back. No, he walks in at the exact inopportune moment, and before we even have a second to process it, or he does, the fucking angel vampire demon flies across the room. He's down on the ground, and he's getting his neck chewed out, and they're feeding on him. Hard cut to credits. And I sat up and I was like, the fucking balls on this show, dude.
Yes.
To kill off my two favorite characters to this point.
In the same fucking episode.
In the same episode, less than 20 minutes apart. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. And then I had to remind myself, but dude, it's only 7 episodes. This is episode 4. This is when shit would be getting crazy if it was the midpoint of a season. Mm-hmm. Or headed you into the back half. But yet, it still completely caught me off guard. And then to open the next episode for a bit with all of this, oh yeah, I don't know where Riley is, and I'm really mad at him, all this different shit, and just you're like, oh my God, the tragedy, the pathos of they don't know he's gone, this sucks. And then he pops up
at night,
and you're like, oh fuck, oh now he's one. And then the full circle around to no, I'm going to take you out on this boat, tell you the whole story, and then I have to self-sacrifice because there is no way that you would ever actually believe this until you see it. And the only way for me to get you to believe it is to basically commit suicide by sunlight.
Right.
And that was just so fucking well done. And I've been sitting here saying my two favorite characters. Make no mistake, Father Paul, Hamish Linklater, that might be the fucking performance of the year, as far as I'm concerned. I thought he was absolutely incredible throughout the whole run. Mm-hmm. Just astounding shit. I know he's been around for a while. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything. I know he's a big theater guy.
Yeah.
He's been in a couple of TV shows. I was absolutely transfixed. I felt like every single like micro decision he made in terms
Oh,
of
and I love
deliveries, everything.
I love
was
the
just
mom
top-notch.
that's gotten like a lot younger, being like, I don't know who the hell that is, but we're not going back to that church. Just like some of the most cryptic, just like what the fuck shit. And I think the thing I love the most is that it's not a hive mind type thing. It's your
that was one
turn
of my
and
favorite-
you do your own thing. You're not nefarious.
One of my favorite moments in the finale is when little Elliot from E.T., Henry Thomas, who, I'm sorry, did you watch Hill House?
Yes.
Did you watch Bly Manor?
No.
Okay. I'm glad somebody's employing Henry Thomas and actually making great use of him, because between his performance in Hill House as the patriarch, his performance in Bly Manor as a Brit, a pretty convincing British accent as well, and then in this as kind of an everyman, like completely different characters, all utterly believable and convincing. Like he fucking rules, dude. Henry Thomas is the shit. Anyways, but the moment in the finale after he's been turned in the church, all hell's broken loose on the island, etc., and he reconnects with the mom, and it's like, I didn't feed on anybody, and she's like, neither did I. Like, and I knew you didn't either. I was like, oh, there are still like some good people left. And the whole thing that he gets into, where it's like, I felt the impulse, but I could control it. All these people who are doing this right now, it's because they want to. They could just as easily like fight the hunger, the pain, whatever, and not be taking part in this. But at the end of the day, it comes down to it's human nature. But yeah, no, the whole like, you're not some mindless
It's a complete. It's a fucking Garden of Eden. No, they are all without sin.
Yeah.
Then they are given like knowledge and told, all right, here's the deal, but you can't, and the free will is, do you not partake in eating, or do you? After you've been given the new blood of like, in my head, just because, I always got to go back to Dracula 2000. As soon as they were like an angel, I was like, oh my God, is that Judas? Is that Judas? But again, it's just a fucking...
You just brought it full circle.
Yeah, of course. So, but, and again,
we have to end the podcast.
I love the Muslim in it with his son, the dynamic back and forth of that, just the levels that it gets, because the thing
Sorry, go ahead.
the thing that like doesn't reach the horror level, but it still bothers me and gets to me, is like when they've got him and it's like, hey dude, you don't have to do this. You don't have to drink this shit, take this sacrament thing and die. And it's basically like a father pretty much being held down by the world, and his son is going against not only his beliefs, but his mother's religious beliefs, and the tearing of that back and forth for the son to come back and be like, okay, like I'm, this is wrong. We should burn, like for him to have that change, even though he has turned.
Yeah.
Because doesn't the son comes back and kind of helps towards the end, doesn't he burn? Yeah. And their thought of like the humans that are humans, but the people who are not turned still being like, this has to stop. We can't let him get to the
it has
land.
the thing ending of like,
nobody
can leave
let's
here
burn
alive.
the boats,
Oh no! And as soon as I knew that was the trajectory, I was like, I fucking love this show so much.
Because my thing is,
I was already in love
when
with
they
it,
open that episode and Riley's back, I'm like, great. We can get into the fucking let's
have a Lost Boys fight.
Let's
right?
get a group together with a Lost Boys fight, us versus them, whatever. So to turn that and say, no, I'm going to kill myself, and that's how you're going to remember what I bullshit
again.
Perfect. I didn't know I wanted it.
I know exactly. They fucked me up 2 episodes in a row because I was like, you brought him back to kill him again, and it worked. Yeah. Like normally, if you did that in any other show, I'd be like, fuck you, dude.
Right.
It's the equivalent of like when they bring Glenn back on The Walking Dead after like he was absent. Bring him back to kill him like, less than 10 episodes later. That kind of shit.
Speaking of that though, one of the things I do love apparently recently as they're winding it down, there is a conversation in the show between like Negan and Maggie, and he basically is like, fuck no, I'm not going to apologize. I don't feel bad. Your people murdered all of my men at that station. What do you think I was going to do? Just let you live? No, I had to show like that we aren't weak because the first sign of my people, what'd you do? You were looking for Negan. You killed them all. You didn't give them a chance. Why the fuck would I? Yeah, okay. Just because I
Right.
did it and it's never been touched on before. And that was the thing I always said whenever anybody would talk about it. It's like, well, I mean, they kind of did deserve it. They just murdered all these humans for no reason.
Yeah.
And so I was appreciated that in The Walking Dead did happen. You mentioned Glenn. I had to throw that in there. But yeah, it's the same thing. You're like, every time you think you know what the show is going to be and what you want from it, you are denied it. But what you are given is exactly what you didn't know you wanted from the get-go. Because we are wrong. There are 2 kids who make it out, which is nice. But when they're like, no, we got to burn the boats. And the realization of like, oh, they burned the boats. Like, we're not getting out of here. And then when the Muslim kid's like, fuck it, we're all going to burn, and throws the thing, and it's like, it's perfect. It reminds me of like the end of Return to Salem's Lot, where they're, or like the end of Vampires, where it's like, you don't see it because it's still dark. And of course, the Miss Green, she, winds up stabbing the wings so the angel vampire demon, he can't fly anywhere. And the last shot is just they see him going in the night. Totally leaves it up to like, if you want to revisit that property, you can. I wouldn't. I enjoyed what I wanted.
No. It has a definitive end on that.
Right. Yeah, you could leave it as like the vampire thing wasn't able to make it to land and burn up in the sun, or somehow managed to, find its way into a cave, and that's that.
No, but we know it. We know it died.
How?
Because the last line of the show is, I can't feel my legs.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what lets you know he didn't make it to shore. They saved the day.
Oh.
It's actually a really happy ending.
Oh. I didn't pay. I must have.
Yeah, no, the very last line is the girl who'd been miraculously healed.
Uh-huh.
She says, I can't feel my legs again. That's the very last line of the show. But that lets you know the creature is dead. Because if he was alive, the magic or whatever,
The magic blood.
the
yeah.
blood would still be sustaining her. She'd be still feeling the effects of it.
But wouldn't she eventually lose it anyway because she wasn't constantly being fed it at mass?
I didn't take it as that. I took it as that was our final. I mean, it's literally the last line of the show. I took that to let you know that no, he didn't make it back. That our heroes did triumph in the end, even though they all had to die.
Right.
They did save the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Jesus had to die to save the rest of the world, no? Ultimately, that's what it's all about.
Right.
You make a few vampire angels in the process, so be it.
Beth Keane,
Oh, God, what a bitch.
I was having this conversation with Evan. We had it boiled down to like she was like 3 characters in one, but it was definitely, he brought up, is it Beth Grant and Donnie Darko? He told me to forcibly insert.
Do you know what my away
you
know what my away message is on my teams at work?
Sometimes I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's her, so it's a little bit of her.
Right.
I said Marcia Gay Harden's character in The Mist.
Yeah.
And then it just occurred to me now, but a lot of Piper Laurie from Carrie as well.
Yeah.
Carrie's mom. If you swirl those 3 together, my God, dude. The scene where after she murders Joe's dog, she killed that dog. Make no fucking mistake. No bones about it. She killed that fucking dog.
Yeah.
And the sheriff comes in to question her about it. Next to her giant vats
Jug
of rat poison.
Yeah.
That scene, my God, dude. Like some of her deliveries where it's like, she knows that he knows and he can't do shit about it. And she's like reveling in it. I was like, I fucking cannot wait for you to die.
And then of course she becomes the right hand.
Yeah, exactly. And then they just make you wait for it. And you're just like, I need comeuppance for her. And what it ultimately is everybody is Father Paul kind of telling her like, no, we got this wrong. You're fucking... And that's what I kind of loved about the show overall is... And I respect this about pretty much anything that approaches it this way. Religion is not inherently evil. I've got my own personal issues with organized religion, but religion is not inherently evil.
No.
But what the show shows you is how it can be used for good and for ill, and trying to find the balance between those two, essentially. Mm-hmm. But you see how it can be grossly misinterpreted and like misused, misrepresented, and how you know that those moments towards the end where, like, again, in practical, normal, everyday, real world scenario terms, this is all batshit crazy. Mm-hmm. But the fact that she has a Bible verse for everything. From, oh, this is the book of Revelation. This is fucking normal as shit. Like, we told you this would happen. Like, all of that stuff is just hit me. I was like, it's so brilliantly done. It's just, I mean, it felt like it felt like a project that Flanagan had like been working on forever, where it's just like every little element of it was, you know,
flawless.
It's so great, man. I mean, there's some things I could quibble with overall, and like it's particularly in the finale, which I think is it has a lot of like weight on its shoulder to tie up everything, and I thought for the most part pretty much operated like a Swiss watch. Like there was nothing that was set up or lingered on in the series, which I love its languid pace, its long dialogue scenes, and all of that. There was no real like dangling thread that I felt like was not fully pulled on.
Yeah.
Very satisfying ending. And I also liked knowing that, like, this is it. Like,
yeah, no, exactly.
We're not getting any more of this. We are getting another brand new Mike Flanagan show in 2022 with a lot of the same cast members. And I do know that Hamish Linklater is basically part of the repertory crew now. So he will be in the next one. And it is called Midnight Something, but I can't remember what the... I'm going to look it up while we're talking about this. Any thoughts on the 2000s? Because it is getting late. We're pretty deep into this.
Just quickly on it. I put Slither on there. Splinter on there. Because
Slither's a good movie too.
It is. Yeah, I did rewatch that. Because it was like unknown, I feel like to a lot of people. If you haven't watched, if you're a horror person, you know it. If you're a casual viewer of horror, you probably don't. But it's our boy Shea Wiggum. And the only other recognizable actor would be the friend from Road Trip. I don't know his name. That's the only other one I can think of that you might know if you're just a casual viewer. The thing mostly about the 2000s, I think we did kind of get into with your little rant about spoon-feeding nostalgia. There's a little bit of that with Rob Zombie is, especially Devil's Rejects, that is his version of a 70s freak out, crazy, batshit, Texas Chainsaw, everything all in one. And I appreciated that. The same way that, like, even though I was getting spoon-fed Halloween, I didn't get a nostalgia vibe from that one. I got let's see this guy's interpretation of it, because I trust him from House of a Thousand Corpses to Devil's Rejects. And I don't know where it went off the rails, but it just feels like after doing Halloween and doing it the way he wanted to, those two movies, I feel like you and I watched Lords of Salem. That was all right.
I think arguably his best movie.
Yeah, very
next
creepy.
to Halloween too.
Yeah, exactly. And you said don't bother with 31, and then 3 from Hell.
31 was a huge letdown. 3 from Hell, I think, is...
Yeah, you're
decent.
battling with like Sid Haig not being in it because of his,
But I do love Richard Brake. I mean,
yeah.
If you're gonna sub somebody in,
yeah.
But no, I think when Rob Zombie hit the scene, I think for a certain type of horror fan, it was a like exactly what you're talking about. It's like, and it's kind of what I personally prefer and want more of, which is like I don't need a remake of the thing that's a bastardized version of it. I want you to take what you love about all of this and give me something new.
Right.
And
it's
in a lot of ways, to build from like House of Thousand Corpses, which felt like dialing it back to like, hey, I want shit to like feel a little dangerous again, a little more like subversive and like creepy.
Oh,
like,
no, I mean, I remember people
we're
having
getting
to like
too stale with like J-horror in that time period. We're getting into like just remake after remake, which some are successful and some are not, but we're basically readapting all of the classic properties for the most part.
You're throwing it, and there's some gems in there that you get, which is your Saws, your Hostels, which do start their own subgenre. High Tension comes along in there, which is a foreign film, which I appreciate on so many levels. For
I
what
think
it
if I
is.
remove, I think in retrospect,
If you take out every reboot remake from that early thing and just focus on the original things you got, even if they were based on things like Ivan Milat with Wolf Creek, knowing exactly what that guy did and how fucked up he was, and the the 2000s tried to lie to you. The 2000s tried to say like, oh, this killer in Australia has never been caught. Yes, he has. We know exactly who that guy is. Then they remade Texas Chainsaw. Oh, well, they found all this stuff when they were going through the house, and like, look at the found footage of like what was waiting down there. It's all one dude. It's all a guy who had a mom complex who wore skin. It's Ed Gein. That's it. There never was a massacre. And for some people, they love like getting into all that, and some people like myself love to just tell them, no, it's just this guy. Don't worry about it. Don't be scared. I was scared of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how visceral that first kill you talked about is. And when I learned that that was complete bullshit and it was literally just Ed Gein and people were taking this tiny little piece of his true crime story and turning it into this stuff, I thought, fuck yeah, great. Awesome that you did that, but also doesn't affect me. I'm not as bothered because I know who the real guy is, you know? But there's certain things that have come out in the 2000s and since then that fundamentally bother me because, one, there is no source material to take them to, and they're just really inventive and ingenious ideas that are somewhat universal but also can be melded really well to just like my personal relationship with the world at large. I'm thinking more of like an It Follows, thinking more along the lines of like a Green Room, of like, that's the closest thing to somebody instantly is in the wrong place at the wrong time, and what can you do to get out of it? And oh, guess what? You're not. And so that one has stuck with me as well. But for that little bit of time in the early 2000s, we did have, you know, I mean, to me, Rob Zombie was the guy when it came to horror in the early 2000s.
That's what I'm saying. I think he was like the kind of the next great hope, or people thought that it was going to kind of signify a shift back to like I said, more danger, because it wasn't as graphic and intense as his movies can be. They still existed outside of this torture porn thing that was starting to happen.
Right.
Even though I feel like people tried to lump Devil's Rejects into that territory, and I think that was a mistake. But I talked about the year of 2005, which is Devil's Rejects, which I saw in the theater with you.
Yep.
Wolf Creek, which I saw in the theater definitely with Mom. I don't know if you were there for that one as well.
I was, because I remember being bothered by the fact that they hadn't caught the dude, and just how like gut punchy. Because that's the thing. I don't know if there was maybe, and again, I do this all the time. We talk about this time and day, but I feel like the reason why like the torture porn and all this stuff, it was stuff that didn't happen. It was either in the 70s back in the day when it happened. Even though I don't think, and they don't say that Devil's Rejects is back in the day, but they don't give you a year. But you could argue that it could have been present day in the West, or you could back in the day.
You know it's in the 70s.
How? Do they have to give you a year?
I think they do in House of a Thousand Corpses, but those movies take place in the 70s.
Okay.
Or they reference them on the radio and stuff.
Then that's good. Because I feel like, as a reaction, everything in the 2000s had to have this weird level of like maliciousness, outsider, not American, torture bully. And it was everybody's fear wrapped up in like, the guy that orchestrated the murder of all these people on 9/11 is still out there. So you had your Ivan Milat character from Wolf Creek, who was like, oh, I'm friendly, I'm an Aussie guy, but then like, oh, I'm gonna fucking marry you. Go ahead, do what you want, scream it. No one's coming for you. You are fucked completely. And I know it, and I'm gonna get off on it while I do it. Then they may have been American, may have not, like the businessmen in the hostels things. The Saul killer who like has all this planned out and whatnot. I've always looked at like this early 2000s into the latter part of, we were very afraid of the unknown other foreigner that we couldn't explain, and we had to manifest it onto film in a weird way.
Just to go along with what you're saying, not that I think it's intentional, but other one from 2005. We've already mentioned Devil's Rejects. We've already mentioned Wolf Creek, and we've mentioned Hostel.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth one in this component is The Descent.
Right.
Which is also, it's us going into an outsider thing. But yeah, it's an unknown, it's a creature, etc. And then I think part of the brilliance of that movie too is, as much as the creatures are a factor, a lot of it is those girls turning on each other.
Yes.
And their interpersonal relationships being like brought to the surface because of the heightened situation that they're in. Another brilliant movie that does not show you shit for like an hour.
Right. Yeah.
And then when it does, you're like, ugh,
fuck,
get me out of here. I need to be out of here right now.
And again, you're saying 2005. That's 2 years after we've been lied to about weapons of mass destruction. People forget about that now because it's all like, oh no, there were no WMDs. Making a movie in that particular time frame, you've been told by the people that, again, 70s and 80s cynicism about the government, whatever it is, you've been told by the people who were in power that we then re-elected a few years later to stay the course, that the guys that want to hurt us might have weapons of mass destruction. We're back in the 80s again. We don't know if we're going to make it to the end of the decade, because what if they do? What if they come get us? So operating under that time frame, everything I feel like you can look at as a post 9/11 cathartic release via, our fear of like this foreign entity or going and doing something outside of our comfort zone we're not used to is going to get us killed. Going into a cave. Okay, that's us going into the caves of Afghanistan, and it's getting our young men and women killed, because that's what the government's doing. Okay, the people who are attacking us in these movies, we may not know them, and even if we do, because we've met them, there's no real general reason why they would like to do it other than they want to do it. Was there some big thing? I mean, it's not like bin Laden had his finger on the stock market and was going to make his family even richer. He just wanted to do it because that was his belief and ideology to do it, essentially, if you want to try to get technical. So I think the things that we enjoy and the things that actually hit and are memorable are things like Rob Zombie, because it's not focused on any of that. It is throwing it back to this crazy, like the root error of horror, but it's through the lens of a guy who grew up and loved it. And that gets
let's not forget, one of the biggest subversions of that at the time, which seems almost unthinkable now, was centering the entire movie on the killers.
Right.
Taking your villains from the first film and making them your protagonist, which I think has recently been done in reverse. Well, no, in exactly the way I just said. I haven't seen it, but Don't Breathe 2 looks
he's
like
the bad guy, yeah.
Looks like the villain from the first one is now. And granted, the first one, that's part of what I liked about it, was it walked this line of like, well, these kids breaking into this house kind of fucking suck too. Like, I kind of hate all of these people, so I don't really care what happens. But it was still just this incredible heightened level of tension. I've heard 2 is just okay, but the idea that they took the rapist murderer from the first
party crasher
one, yeah,
don't go to the fucking party crasher's
and
house.
made him the good guy is very interesting to me. Basically, made him John Wick, blind John Wick, is what it looks like. So
and it's the idea too, like we've talked about the collector and the collection. Like the collector to me is wholly original. Would you put that on your list?
Well, no, I'm sorry, I got all sidetracked, but like, and not that it has to be tied to this or whatever, but going along with your point, yes, it is removed from it, but the brilliant crux of that movie too is by making the villains the protagonists, then we have this interesting dynamic of the normal hero element. Wydell in that movie, we see go from somebody who's trying to walk the line and then who ultimately crosses it, and by the end of it turns into someone who is just as vicious as the people he's pursuing.
Which, a la anybody who might have been torturing people in Abu Ghraib.
100%. That's exactly.
Gitmo?
And I'm like, whether that was a calculated thing on his part or even something that was in his brain, I don't know. But in mirroring something that like, hey, we haven't seen this in the horror genre that much, it is an interesting echo of like, yeah, you know, the tortured, literally tortured by the death of his brother and like needing to avenge him, becomes the torturer. And like, when do you cross it? We know when. That's what I love about the end of that movie, is the lines have been so utterly blurred that you're now rooting for the good guy to get killed because you don't want him to kill the murderers who you've grown attached to. It's a fucked up, brilliant magic trick.
Yeah.
That still works every time you watch it.
And that's why
then 3 from Hell kind of takes it off the rails. But, you know.
But, I mean, when did 3 from Hell come out?
Like 2 or 3 years ago.
Right. Wouldn't you argue that the whole country was off the rails by 2016? Noah?
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to rewatch 3 from Hell because it's on Shudder right now.
Yeah, I saw that. I might actually check it out. I've never seen it.
It does have, I mean, it is not the caliber of Rejects. It is not, unfortunately. Partly because of budget, a lot of other things. But it does have its moments. And I'm probably going to revisit some of those moments. So we need to wrap this up so I can watch something before I fall asleep tonight. Yeah. And so that you can get home safely. But yeah, this was a nice, lengthy ARKTOBER chat. We will definitely be back.
We're going to hit you with an 8 More Days to Halloween, brought to you by Silver Shamrock Mask Company. Yes. If you need to, get your Silver Shamrock mask. They have 3 of them out this year. There's a really lively pumpkin, as a classic skeleton, and a really ghoulish green witch. So you should make sure you get your Silver Shamrock mask. Make sure you get them before Halloween. And you got to make sure Halloween's on a Saturday this year, right? Sunday this year, right? Make sure 9 p.m. Sunday, you and the kids gather around the TV. There's going to be a special presentation by Silver Shamrock. Anchor Bay is putting it on. It's going to be on all the 3 big networks, your NBCs, your ABCs, all that. To make sure you get your Silver Shamrock mask. Make sure you watch them Sunday, 9 p.m. It's going to be there. Right now, we got a few more days till Halloween, but we're going to be bringing you guys some stuff. You know, counting them down. 8 more days to Halloween. I remember Halloween. It's amazing, man. You know, Dead Cat. What was it? Brownleaf Vertigo. All this difference of dead cats hanging from poles. I remember Halloween. I'm just going.
You were going really strong, and then you're starting to run out of steam.
Ants in my eyes, Johnson. I got ants in my eyes. I got a terrible condition. I feel no pain, but I got ants in my eyes. I'm ants in my eyes, Johnson. That's my favorite bit from Rick and Morty's Ants in My Eyes, Johnson. It's on one of the episodes where they're watching intergalactic TV. But again, folks, 9 p.m. Sunday night, Halloween, October 31st. Make sure you get your Silver Shamrock mask. It's gonna be a great show. We got a great show for you. Silver Shamrock mask. Got to get them. You know. Get that with all your creepy crawlies and stuff. You know, make sure you get the real Silver Shamrock one. They got the medallion on the back. Don't get the knockoff ones. Don't go down the street just because, you know, the black market guys on the corner are like, hey, you need a Silver Shamrock mask. I can get you one for $10. Pay the $20. Listen, guys, I personally know Connell Cochran. He's a great guy.
This is the spookiest thing that's ever happened. This is my nightmare. Please shut the fuck up and end the show now. We're done. I'm Noah. You're Gavin. It's ARKTOBER. We'll be back soon. Love you guys. Stay spooky.
Silver Shamrock.